We all know that kings and queens lead lives of unimaginable luxury, surrounded by power and wealth. But what if I told you that even the grandest palaces hide a deeper story, one of struggle, purpose, and transformation? Picture being born into royalty, with everything you could ever want at your fingertips, but still feeling a pull for something more. In today's video, we'll talk about the early days of King Ashoka, the son of a mighty emperor, and how his childhood shaped the ruler he would become. So let's not waste any time, and let's begin. In the heart of Pataliputra, the grand capital of the Maurya Empire, you are born into royal luxury. Your father, the great Chandragupta Maurya, is a king who has shaped the empire with his strength and wisdom. The palace around you is vast, its walls adorned with intricate carvings and golden ornaments that reflect the light of 1,000 lamps. The air smells of incense, mixed with the faint scent of jasmine that fills the courtyards. The sounds of palace life are constant. The soft clinking of royal ornaments, the rhythm of footfalls echoing through marble halls, the distant chatter of servants and officials tending to their duties. But beneath this grandeur, there's a hunger for something more. Even as a young prince, you feel it. You grow restless with the luxury around you, desiring not only power, but a deeper purpose. There is something in the air of Pataliputra, a weight that only those destined for greatness can feel. The eyes of your father, your mentors, and the empire's courtiers are always on you, watching your every move, expecting greatness. Your education begins early. Lessons are held in the grandest halls, where scholars from all corners of the empire teach you the ways of governance, military strategy, and philosophy. The sound of ancient texts being turned fills your mind with knowledge, though there's a quiet discomfort in the formality of it all. While others may be content to passively accept their fates, you have already begun to question the very foundations of the world you are destined to rule. The palace feels like a labyrinth of sounds and sights, beautiful yet confining. As a child, you wander through vast corridors, each more magnificent than the last, but they always seem to close in around you. The whispers of advisors and the distant hum of courtly intrigue swirl in the background as you move silently, unnoticed in your royal robes. The heavy steps of guards, the rustling of courtiers' clothes, and the gentle murmur of servants blend into a constant rhythm, one that makes it difficult to hear your own thoughts. Despite the luxury of your surroundings, there is a tension in the air, a pressure you cannot escape. Your father, the emperor, is a man of great power, but he is also a man of secrets and harsh decisions. You witness the weight of his rule, the cold determination in his eyes when he makes difficult choices. His influence, though necessary for the empire, looms over you like a shadow, pushing you to grow into something more than just a prince. You cannot avoid the inevitability of the throne. It will be yours one day, whether you are ready or not. In the distance, you hear the sound of soldiers practicing in the courtyard. Their rhythmic training, the clash of weapons on shields, fills you with an inexplicable sense of longing. You are drawn to the strength and discipline they embody. In the stillness of the night, when the palace quiets down and the moon casts its silver glow on the stone floors, you often find yourself thinking of battle, of what it means to rule an empire. The life of luxury in the palace feels almost too distant, too detached from the rough realities of leadership. But then there are the quiet moments, the rare instances when you are allowed to be a child. You find solace in the palace gardens, where the gentle rustle of leaves and the sound of water trickling through fountains bring a sense of calm. The flowers bloom in brilliant colors, their fragrances mingling with the scent of the earth beneath your feet. These moments are fleeting, but they are precious to you, offering a brief escape from the burden that is already beginning to shape your future. As you grow older, your role as a royal heir becomes more apparent. You begin to spend more time with your family, your father, your mother, and your brothers, each of them playing a part in the drama of your life. Your relationship with your father is complicated. While he is the emperor and the figurehead of the empire, there is a coldness between you. The expectations placed on you feel suffocating, and the more you learn about the empire, the more you begin to understand the immense challenges that await you. In this palace of opulence and duty, you begin to see the first glimpses of the man you are becoming. The path of power, leadership, and empire building stretches out before you, and you know that one day it will be yours. But with this knowledge comes the realization that the weight of the crown will be far greater than you ever imagined. The questions you once had as a young prince begin to evolve into something deeper, a yearning for meaning, for purpose, for a destiny that goes beyond mere rule. And so, as you stand at the threshold of your future, the burden of your father's empire and the expectations of the court begin to press heavier on your shoulders. The sound of footsteps approaching reminds you that your journey is only beginning. The day will come when you must walk the path laid before you, and in the next chapter, we will begin to see how your early life, the lessons you learned, and the family dynamics around you start shaping the ruler you are destined to become. Ashoka's path is not just one of power, but of discovery, a journey that begins with your early days as a prince and leads you into a life filled with great challenges, triumphs, and ultimately, transformation. As you step further into your youth, the walls of the palace, once a place of quiet wonder, now seem to close in around you. The days of innocence slip away, and you feel the weight of your future pressing down on you like the heat of the midday sun. No longer just a child playing in the gardens or listening to the ancient teachings of scholars. You are now a young man with a clear understanding of the responsibility that awaits you. Your every step feels measured, your every action scrutinized by those around you. You've grown sharp in intellect, absorbing the lessons taught by the finest minds in the empire. The sound of ink on parchment fills your days as you study strategy, law, and philosophy. You are well versed in the ways of governance, but the weight of ruling, of commanding armies and making decisions that will shape the future of the empire, remains distant, a shadow you have yet to fully embrace. You watch your father, Chandragupta Maurya, with a mixture of admiration and trepidation, aware of the burden he carries as the leader of the Maurya Empire. Your father, a man who founded this vast empire with blood, sweat, and iron, has long been the face of power and strength. Yet even he cannot escape the struggles that come with such a title. You see the toll his reign has taken on him, the deep lines etched into his face, the weariness in his eyes, the way he stands a little straighter when addressing the court. But you know he feels the weight of it all. The soft rustling of his robes as he moves through the palace halls is a sound you now associate with authority and responsibility. But it is not just your father's struggles that shape your understanding of the crown. The palace is filled with whispers, of battles fought between your uncles for power, of betrayals that fester behind the gilded walls. These murmurings fill the air like a distant storm, one that seems inevitable, yet far removed from your own immediate concerns. You listen carefully, for you know that the winds of political change blow silently but steadily, and you must learn to navigate them if you are to one day wear the crown. It is during these years that you begin to witness firsthand the bitter realities of politics. The court, which once seemed a place of grace and elegance, now feels like a battlefield in itself. The quiet murmur of conversations, the rustling of official scrolls, the click of sandals on the cold marble floors. These sounds are the backdrop to the political tensions that run deep within the empire. You are introduced to the harsh realities of statecraft, the delicate dance of alliances, betrayals, and the struggle for control. You feel the growing pressure of leadership as you begin to see the subtle manipulations of those around you. advisors who smile in your presence but speak differently behind closed doors, courtiers who bow low to your father but harbor their own ambitions. It is in these moments that you realize the crown does not come easily. Power is not simply given. It is earned through cunning, strength, and above all, survival. The whispers of court intrigue grow louder, and you begin to understand the precarious nature of your position. The empire is vast, its territory is far-reaching, but its stability is fragile. You watch as your father makes difficult decisions, sacrificing allies, breaking promises, and consolidating power in ways that are necessary but not always just. You wonder if you will be able to carry this burden when the time comes, if you will have the strength to make such decisions without faltering. Yet even in the face of this pressure, you find moments of solace. The sound of soldiers practicing their drills outside the palace brings a sense of comfort. The clash of swords, the rhythm of feet marching in unison, is a reminder of the strength of the empire and the duty you will one day uphold. These sounds, so familiar, so steady, serve as a grounding force as you prepare for the responsibilities of kingship. The weight of the crown becomes heavier with each passing day. You begin to understand that the empire is not just a land of opulence and glory. It is a realm of complexity, where every decision ripples through the fabric of the kingdom. The sight of the palace's golden pillars, once a symbol of hope and grandeur, now reminds you of the quiet solitude that comes with leadership. The bustling courtyards filled with servants, traders, and nobles no longer feel like a place of refuge, but a reminder of the constant demands placed upon you. As your father's health begins to decline, the future of the Maurya Empire becomes uncertain. You feel a shift in the atmosphere of the palace, as those around you begin to whisper of succession. You understand that it is no longer just a question of if you will ascend to the throne, but when, and whether you will be ready when that moment comes. The weight of your father's legacy, the expectations of the court, and the ambitions of your uncles all weigh heavily on your shoulders. You begin to wonder if you are truly ready for the crown. You are no longer just a prince. You are the heir, the one who will one day command armies, shape the destiny of the empire, and be held accountable for the lives of countless people. It is a burden that few are prepared for, and one that will test every ounce of your strength, wisdom, and resolve. As your path forward becomes clearer, so too does the realization that you must face the challenges of leadership head-on. In the next chapter, you will begin to experience firsthand the trials of ruling a vast empire, where your character will be tested by those around you, and the choices you make will shape your future and the future of the Maurya Empire. The day has come when the weight of the throne is no longer a distant possibility. It is now a reality. Ashoka, once a prince, has ascended to the throne after the death of his father, but his journey has only just begun. The palace that once echoed with the quiet rustling of royal life now hums with the sounds of conspiracy and ambition. Ashoka, young and filled with the fire of youth, now faces the very real and dangerous task of securing his reign. The air around him feels thick with tension, and the walls of the palace, once a symbol of royal grace, now seem to close in with every passing moment. His ambition burns bright, but so too does the threat of those who would see him fail. The brothers who once shared the same blood, the same lineage, now stand as rivals. They too covet the throne, and in the shadows of the palace whispers grow louder. These whispers are not of loyalty, but of plots, of ambition, of the very foundation of the empire at risk. Ashoka knows that his path to the throne was never meant to be simple. The throne is a place of both power and danger, where every decision made could mean life or death. The ceremonial bells of the palace toll, marking the beginning of an era, but the sound does little to calm the turmoil inside him. His father's reign was one of strength, but it was also marked by battles and sacrifice. Ashoka understands that the throne is not merely a title to hold, it is a burden, one that requires not just wisdom, but an iron will to survive. In the quiet moments, when he walks the halls of the palace alone, the weight of his legacy presses heavily on him. The power that was once his father's, and that now belongs to him, is not given. It is taken, fought for, and guarded fiercely. And so, as the days pass, Ashoka begins to realize that the greatest battle of all is not on the battlefield, but within these very walls. His brothers make their move, and Ashoka, unwilling to be overshadowed, does what must be done. The sound of swords clashing and the final breaths of his brothers fill the halls of the palace. Ashoka, standing at the precipice of power, watches as his family is torn apart by his hand. There is no room for hesitation, no time for second thoughts. The palace that once felt like home now feels cold and empty, a stark reminder that in the world of kings and emperors, only the strongest survive. As the blood of his brothers stains the very stone of the palace, Ashoka's thoughts turn toward the empire, the vast and sprawling land he now controls. The ceremonial bells ring once more, but this time they do not bring comfort. They serve as a reminder of the fragility of power, of how easily it can be taken away, and how quickly it can slip through one's fingers. The throne is his now, but the journey ahead will demand everything he has: his intellect, his strength, his very soul. And yet, as the days pass and Ashoka secures his reign, he knows that this is just the beginning. The empire is vast, and its borders stretch far beyond what he can see from the palace windows. The path of conquest and war looms large on the horizon, and Ashoka's ambition is matched only by his thirst for power. The kingdom he now rules is not merely a land of wealth and influence. It is a battleground, where the strength of his rule will be tested by every adversary that stands in his way. With the foundation of his reign secured, the story now moves toward the trials that await Ashoka as he faces the complexities of governance. The court may be subdued, but beyond its walls, there are enemies, both within and outside the empire, ready to test his resolve. The battle for the throne may be over, but the true challenges of leadership have only just begun. The battle is over, and the land that stretches before Ashoka is littered with the remnants of war: broken bodies, shattered shields, and the smell of blood and smoke that hangs in the air like a heavy fog. The victory is his, but it feels distant, hollow, like the ringing of distant bells that seem to echo in his mind long after the last cries of battle have faded. In the silence that follows, the king stands at the heart of the battlefield, watching as his soldiers begin to gather the wounded, bury the dead, and restore some semblance of order to the chaos. But Ashoka cannot move. His eyes, fixed on the devastation around him, are filled with something new, a deep sorrow that he cannot ignore. The empire he has built, the empire he once dreamed of expanding, is now stained with the blood of its own people. The cries of the fallen still linger in his ears, and the faces of those who have died haunt him, their expressions frozen in a tragic mix of fear and defiance. The grandeur of conquest, once so alluring, now seems meaningless. The empire that Ashoka sought to strengthen through force now feels like a fragile shell, cracked under the weight of its own ambition. In the days that follow, Ashoka returns to the palace, but it no longer feels like home. The sounds of the court, the murmurs of the advisors, the clinking of dishes at the royal feasts, everything is suddenly distant. The palace, with its marble floors and golden walls, seems empty, as though it is no longer a place of power, but a reminder of all that has been lost. His mind is clouded with questions that have no easy answers. What is the price of empire? What is the cost of power? Can one truly claim glory when it is built on so much suffering? As the weight of Kalinga's blood settles on his soul, Ashoka begins to retreat inward, searching for meaning in the wake of his actions. The court, once bustling with activity, now seems foreign to him. The ceremonies, the endless meetings, the constant stream of visitors, they all blur together, lost in the haze of his reflection. He begins to withdraw from the people around him, spending long hours alone in his chambers, contemplating the path he has chosen. The king, who once sought victory at any cost, now finds himself searching for redemption. His thoughts often turn to the faces of the people who died in Kalinga, men who fought bravely for their land, for their families, for their beliefs. And he begins to wonder, what if the true strength of a ruler lies not in the victories won through bloodshed, but in the ability to unite, to bring peace to those who suffer? What if the real power of the Maurya Empire lies not in its vastness, but in the compassion that its ruler can show to its people? And so, the king's mind begins to change. The ambition that once burned so brightly now flickers uncertainly, dimmed by the realization of the cost it demands. The empire that he has built through conquest may be vast, but it is also fragile, held together by a thin thread of fear and domination. Ashoka realizes that he must choose a new path, a path that will no longer be defined by violence and war, but by the principles of peace and compassion, that he begins to see as the true strength of a ruler. This turning point in Ashoka's life, this shift from the pursuit of power to the pursuit of peace, will be his greatest challenge. It will demand more from him than any battle ever has. In the days to come, he will begin to make the decisions that will forever alter the course of his reign. The path of conquest, which once seemed so clear and so necessary, now gives way to a new vision for the future, a vision of an empire ruled not by fear, but by wisdom and kindness. As the weight of the past presses heavily on Ashoka's shoulders, his thoughts begin to turn toward the future. The world he once sought to conquer now feels like a place in need of healing, and he wonders how he can ever undo the damage he has caused. The cries of the fallen still echo in his ears, but they are now joined by the quiet voice of his conscience, urging him toward a new kind of rule. In the stillness of the palace, Ashoka begins to see the truth. His reign will be defined not by the battles he wins, but by the lives he touches. The pain of Kalinga will never leave him, but perhaps, in time, he can find a way to use that pain to create something greater. A kingdom built on the foundation of peace, where compassion reigns, and the suffering of the past is replaced by the hope of a brighter future. The change in Ashoka's heart is profound, and the journey ahead will not be easy. But as he reflects on the cost of his conquests, he knows that this moment will mark the beginning of a new chapter in his reign, a chapter defined not by war, but by the pursuit of peace and wisdom. The man who once sought power above all else now stands in the silence of his own creation, surrounded by the ruins of his ambition. The blood of Kalinga has stained not only the land but his soul. As he surveys the battlefield, the cries of the fallen echo in his mind, and he begins to understand the true cost of his conquests. The empire he built with such determination and ruthlessness now feels like a hollow shell. The weight of the lives lost presses down on him, and Ashoka can no longer ignore the sorrow that floods his heart. As he walks away from the battlefield, the weight of the crown feels unbearable. The land around him, once full of promise and power, now feels foreign and cold. The faces of the men who died in the name of his ambition linger in his thoughts. Soldiers who fought not just for their kingdom but for a cause they believed in. just as fiercely as Ashoka believed in his empire. And now, their deaths hang heavy in the air, a reminder of the destruction caused by his quest for control. What has he gained, he wonders, if all it has brought him is this endless grief? The peaceful sounds of the world seem distant now. The rustling of trees, the wind brushing against the earth, all feel out of reach as Ashoka's mind is consumed with what he has done. He knows there is no undoing the past, no way to bring back those lost. But as he walks, his heart heavy with regret, there is something stirring inside him, something deeper than the thirst for power that once defined him. For the first time, he considers what true strength might look like, not in the conquest of lands or the expansion of an empire, but in the ability to heal, to restore, to build something lasting and compassionate. Ashoka knows that this path is not one he can walk alone. The empire he commands, though vast, is scarred by his actions. He realizes that the journey ahead will require more from him than military might or royal decrees. It will require a transformation from within. This is not the Ashoka he once envisioned. The weight of the crown, once so tempting, now feels like a responsibility he is not sure he can bear in the same way. His ambition has led him to this point, but now, standing amidst the remains of his choices, Ashoka sees that true power lies not in the domination of others, but in the peace that can be brought to a broken world. As he leaves the battlefield behind, the faces of the fallen never fade from his memory. Yet in their memory, he finds the spark of something new, a desire for redemption. He cannot undo the past, but he can choose a different path moving forward. The king who once sought to conquer now longs to rebuild, to heal the wounds he has inflicted on both his empire and his own soul. The grief of Kalinga will never leave him, but perhaps, in time, he can use that grief to guide him towards something greater. Ashoka's journey, now changed by the blood he has spilled, leads him in a direction he could never have foreseen. No longer defined by war and conquest, he sets his sights on a new purpose. The crown will remain, but its meaning will shift, from a symbol of domination to one of responsibility and compassion. The path ahead is uncertain, but for the first time, Ashoka begins to understand that the true strength of a ruler is not in what he takes, but in what he gives back. Ashoka's days of conquest are behind him, but the scars they left are deep. The weight of his actions, the blood spilled, and the lives lost linger in the corners of his mind, never truly fading. As the ruler of the vast Maurya Empire, he knows that the throne he now sits upon is not just a seat of power. It is a symbol of the change he must undergo, a change that begins not in the palace or on the battlefield, but within his own heart. In the quiet of his meditation chambers, Ashoka begins the most important journey of his life, the journey inward. The flickering of the oil lamps, the soft rustling of robes, and the distant murmur of the palace all seem to fade as he closes his eyes and seeks solace in stillness. Here, in the solitude of his chambers, Ashoka begins to hear something he has never truly listened to before, the quiet voice of his conscience, the whisper of a truth that has always been there, but was drowned out by ambition and war. As the days pass, Ashoka finds peace in the teachings of Buddhism. The words of the Buddha, simple yet profound, begin to unravel the knots of guilt and sorrow that have bound his heart. He learns that true strength lies not in power over others, but in the mastery of one's own mind and actions. Compassion, forgiveness, and understanding replace the violent impulses that once defined his rule. In these moments of quiet reflection, Ashoka begins to see that the path of conquest he once walked only led to suffering, not just for others but for himself as well. The path of Buddhism, however, offers him something different, a way to heal the wounds he has caused, and to lead with a heart full of empathy, rather than fear. The peaceful hum of monks chanting fills the air, a constant reminder of the path he now treads. Ashoka is no longer the ruthless conqueror driven by ambition. Instead, he is a man searching for inner peace, seeking to bring that peace to his empire. Each day, the weight of his past grows a little lighter, and the clarity he feels deepens. He learns to meditate, to still his thoughts, and to listen, not just to his mind, but to his heart. It is here, in the quiet moments of reflection, that he understands the true power of his reign. Compassion, not cruelty. Peace, not war. As Ashoka embraces the teachings of Buddhism, his transformation becomes evident, not only to himself, but to those around him. The cold, distant ruler who once made decisions with the harshness of a soldier is now a king who seeks to rule with wisdom and kindness. His once fiery ambition has been tempered by the calm of his newfound beliefs. The palace, once a place of cold authority, now feels warmer, more welcoming. Ashoka's reign shifts from one of fear and domination to one of understanding and righteousness. But even as Ashoka's heart changes, the reality of ruling an empire this vast and diverse does not. There are still challenges to face, questions to answer, and people to lead. Yet, Ashoka now understands that leadership is not about imposing one's will, but about guiding others toward peace and compassion. He knows the path will not be easy, but it is the only path that can heal the wounds of the past. In the days following his decision to embrace Buddhism, Ashoka begins to make small, yet significant changes to his rule. He initiates reforms aimed at alleviating the suffering of his people, focusing on justice, fairness, and welfare. The sounds of the palace change, as discussions of war and conquest give way to talks of charity, healing, and community. Ashoka no longer sees his people as subjects to be controlled, but as individuals worthy of respect and kindness. As his transformation becomes more visible, the effect on his kingdom is felt. The once struggling areas of his empire, marked by poverty and unrest, begin to see signs of improvement. The roads are safer, the markets more vibrant, and the voices of the common people are heard with greater respect. The monks, who had long been a presence in Ashoka's life, are now at the forefront of his rule, guiding his decisions and helping to spread the teachings of the Buddha throughout the empire. The peaceful hum of life in the palace, now marked by the gentle chanting of the monks, serves as a reminder of the man Ashoka is becoming, a king who leads with compassion and a heart open to the suffering of others. The empire, once ruled by the sword, is now shaped by understanding and kindness. Ashoka's reign, which once seemed defined by power and conquest, is now defined by his commitment to righteousness and peace. His kingdom begins to feel the impact of his new beliefs, but the journey is far from over. The road ahead will be filled with challenges, and the echoes of the past may never truly fade. But Ashoka is resolute. He has found a new purpose, one that transcends the desire for power and dominance. The true strength of his reign, he now knows, will lie not in the lands he controls, but in the hearts he touches. The stillness of his chambers, once a place of torment and regret, now serves as the birthplace of a new vision for his empire. Ashoka's journey is far from complete, but with each passing day, the man he was grows further apart from the man he is becoming, and the empire that once stood as a monument to war is now on the verge of becoming something greater, a beacon of peace, compassion, and hope for all. Ashoka's heart, once filled with the drive to conquer, now beats with a quieter, more profound purpose. The teachings of the Buddha have transformed not only his mind, but the very essence of his reign. No longer focused on expanding the empire through the sword, Ashoka's vision shifts toward spreading peace, wisdom, and compassion across the lands he governs. His reign, once defined by fear and power, now takes on a new form, one that is marked by the pursuit of righteousness and spiritual enlightenment. As the sun rises over Pataliputra, Ashoka reflects on the responsibility he now carries. It is not just the fate of the empire that rests in his hands, but the hearts of the people within it. His eyes turn toward the monks, who have become his most trusted advisors, and the wisdom they offer fills him with a renewed sense of purpose. He begins to understand that his empire's strength lies not in its military might, but in the peace he can cultivate through the teachings of the Buddha. The sound of prayer drums fills the air in the palace as Ashoka gathers his ministers. The rhythms of the drums seem to echo through the walls of the royal halls, calming and steadying his thoughts. The monks chant, their voices rising in unison, their words woven with compassion and wisdom. It is in these moments of silence and reflection that Ashoka feels the true weight of his transformation. The world that once seemed filled with noise and chaos now feels still. The gentle pulse of the drums, a constant reminder of the peace he wishes to bring to his people. As Ashoka reflects on his newfound path, he begins to make concrete changes within the empire. He orders the construction of stupas, towering monuments that symbolize the teachings of Buddhism, and his commitment to spreading them across the land. These monuments rise high into the sky, their gleaming surfaces reflecting the sunlight like beacons of hope. Each stupa serves as a physical reminder of Ashoka's belief in the power of peace and compassion. The sight of these grand structures, built with the same strength and ambition that once fueled his wars, now serves to unite his empire under a banner of spiritual growth and enlightenment. But Ashoka's vision extends beyond the borders of his capital. He sends missionaries to the farthest reaches of his empire, into the remote corners of India, across the mountains to Central Asia, and to the shores of Southeast Asia. These monks, carrying the teachings of the Buddha in their hearts, travel long distances to spread the message of peace. The soft murmurs of their prayers, the rhythm of their footsteps, and the scent of incense carried by the wind mark their journey. They go where Ashoka cannot, planting seeds of wisdom that will grow into a peaceful future for generations to come. As Ashoka watches his missionaries depart, he is filled with a sense of quiet fulfillment. The empire he once sought to conquer is now the empire he seeks to heal. The vastness of the lands he rules no longer feels like a burden, but a responsibility to nurture and guide. The echo of the Buddha's teachings now reverberates through the streets, through the forests, and across the rivers of the Maurya Empire, filling the hearts of the people with a sense of purpose and unity. The shift is palpable. The once noisy courts of the palace are now filled with discussions of compassion, kindness, and moral duty. The warriors who once stood at attention, swords in hand, now bow their heads in prayer. Ashoka's vision of a peaceful empire is coming to life, not through conquest, but through the quiet strength of shared belief. The sound of the prayer drums and the chanting of the monks becomes a soundtrack to the transformation taking place, not only in Ashoka's heart, but across the empire. As the monks return from their travels, the stories they bring of distant lands and the people they have touched fill Ashoka with pride. The Dharma is spreading, taking root in the hearts of his people and those far beyond his borders. The empire that once stood as a monument to conquest is now becoming a beacon of peace, a place where the teachings of the Buddha illuminate the path forward, guiding all who seek peace and wisdom. Ashoka feels the full weight of his transformation. From a king once driven by ambition, he has become a ruler who leads with compassion, seeking not to rule through power, but through kindness. The winds of change are strong, and they carry the gentle teachings of Buddhism into every corner of his empire. Ashoka, now the living embodiment of these teachings, walks a path of righteousness, knowing that true power lies not in the force of arms, but in the strength of the heart. His kingdom, once defined by its military might, is now marked by the peaceful teachings of the Buddha, and Ashoka's journey continues to unfold in ways he never could have imagined. In the quiet moments of reflection, Ashoka knows that the journey ahead is not one of mere rule. It is a journey of transformation for both himself and the empire he now leads. His reign is still young, but the legacy he is building is one of peace, compassion, and dharma, and the impact of his efforts will ripple across time, touching the hearts of generations to come. Though Ashoka's reign is now defined by peace and spiritual growth, his personal life is far from simple. The tranquility he seeks through his devotion to Buddhism does not always align with the demands of ruling an empire as vast as his. His role as a father and husband presents challenges that no amount of meditation can solve. The palace, filled with the bustling sounds of daily life, becomes a space where duty and love intertwine in ways that Ashoka finds difficult to reconcile. At times, the sounds of family life fill the air, his children's laughter echoing through the royal halls, the soft murmur of a conversation between his queen and the court officials. These sounds are a reminder of the life outside the solemnity of Ashoka's duties, yet they also highlight the distance between the spiritual ruler he is becoming and the family man he must be. His children, innocent and full of life, remind him of the legacy he must leave behind, not just for the empire, but for them as well. Yet, at times, Ashoka feels the weight of his decisions press down on him, decisions that shape the future of his family as much as they do the empire. His queen, once a close companion, now seems more distant. The bond they once shared, built on mutual respect and affection, has been strained by the growing distance between Ashoka's heart and the royal duties that consume his every moment. She too sees the change in him. She sees the man he has become and the man he once was, and struggles to reconcile the two. In their private moments, the warmth of their early years together is hard to find, replaced by the shadows of their separate paths. While Ashoka seeks peace and spiritual fulfillment, his queen remains tied to the pragmatism of rule, the cold calculations of governance, and the daily challenges of keeping an empire intact. Their conversations, once filled with shared dreams and ambitions, now often drift into silence, interrupted only by the demands of the throne. As a father, Ashoka wants nothing more than to give his children the life he never had. He wants them to grow up in a world of peace, to inherit a kingdom that values compassion over conquest. Yet his relationship with them is not without its struggles. His sons, raised with the understanding that they are heirs to the throne, are shaped by the legacy of his rule, just as he was shaped by his father's. They are keenly aware of their destiny, and the expectations placed upon them weigh heavily on their hearts. At times, Ashoka wonders if he is truly preparing them for the challenges that lie ahead, or if his desire for peace has blinded him to the harsh realities of ruling an empire. The quiet moments he shares with his children are fleeting. When they run to him, laughing and full of energy, he sees in them the same spirit that once drove him to conquer. Yet he also sees the burden of leadership already taking root in their hearts. The world he is shaping for them is one of peace. But will they be able to carry that mantle when it's their turn to rule? Ashoka's role as a father has become a complicated dance between love, duty, and legacy. How does he balance the peace he seeks with the fierce expectations of his children's futures? The demands of the throne are often at odds with his desire to be the father they need, and Ashoka finds himself torn between his spiritual mission and the weight of his family's expectations. At times, Ashoka wonders if he is making the right choices. He has changed, and he knows that his children will feel the effects of that change, for better or worse. His reign, defined by compassion and wisdom, offers them a world different from the one he grew up in. A world shaped not by violence and ambition, but by the peaceful teachings of the Buddha. Yet his legacy is not just about the empire, it is about his children, his heirs, and how they will continue his work. Will they carry the lessons of peace and compassion forward, or will the pressures of leadership drag them back into the ways of war and conquest? The palace, once a symbol of Ashoka's power, now feels like a place of quiet reflection. The soft voices of his family contrast sharply with the demands of his position as king. In these moments of silence, Ashoka is reminded that the true legacy he leaves behind is not just the empire he has built, but the lives of those closest to him. His children will carry his name, but will they also carry his ideals? His relationship with his queen, though strained, will leave its mark on their union. But what will be the lasting effect of his reign on the people who share his blood? As Ashoka moves through the days, torn between his duties as king and his role as a father, the question of legacy becomes ever more present in his mind. What kind of father is he? And what kind of king will his children become? These are questions that will define not only the future of the Maurya Empire, but the future of his family as well. In the quiet moments when Ashoka watches his children play, or talks to his queen in the stillness of the evening, he understands that his journey is far from over. The legacy he leaves behind is not just one of power or conquest, but one of love, struggle, and the hope that his children will find their own way, shaped by the lessons he has taught them. The transition from his duties as king to his responsibilities as father and husband is complex, but in the hearts of those closest to him, Ashoka seeks not just to rule, but to build something that will outlast him, something that will carry the peace he has worked so hard to create into the future. The transformation within Ashoka is unmistakable. His heart, once driven by the thirst for power, now beats with a vision of peace and unity. His reign is no longer just about conquest or expanding the borders of the Maurya Empire. It is about creating a harmonious realm where compassion and understanding guide every decision. This new purpose shapes everything he does, from the smallest decree to the grandest project. Ashoka's influence grows as his empire expands, but so do the challenges that come with such vastness. As his rule spreads across the subcontinent, Ashoka begins to see the true breadth of his power. From the towering peaks of the Himalayas to the southern tip of India, his empire encompasses a vast array of peoples, each with their own customs, languages, and beliefs. The diversity of the empire is staggering. In every corner, Ashoka encounters different faiths: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and a multitude of local traditions that have shaped the lives of the people for generations. He knows that his vision of a unified kingdom cannot be achieved through force alone. It must come through understanding, through embracing the differences that exist among his people, and finding a way to bind them together with the threads of mutual respect. In the quiet moments of his reign, when the hustle of royal duties fades into the background, Ashoka reflects on the delicate balance he must strike. He has seen the destructive power of division, and he is determined not to repeat the mistakes of his past. His vision for the empire goes beyond mere political unity. It is a unity of hearts and minds. He wants his empire to not only be strong, but to be a place where people can live in peace, free from fear, where different cultures can coexist without conflict. The palace has become a hub of activity, a constant hum of royal meetings, petitions, and visitors from all corners of the empire and beyond. Foreign emissaries arrive from distant lands, bringing with them the sights, sounds, and ideas of cultures Ashoka has yet to fully understand. The bustling court is a testament to the empire's vastness and the ever-expanding network of influence that Ashoka has cultivated. The courtiers, ambassadors, and traders fill the halls with their discussions, their voices rising and falling in an endless symphony of politics and diplomacy. The smell of incense and the soft rustling of silks blend with the chatter of foreign tongues, a reminder that Ashoka's rule extends far beyond the borders of his homeland. Ashoka listens carefully to these emissaries, his mind always focused on how he can bring his ideals of peace and compassion to the farthest reaches of the empire. He listens to their stories of distant lands, of kingdoms and peoples who have never felt the weight of Mauryan rule, and he wonders how he can make them feel like part of his vision. He knows that true unity cannot be imposed, it must be embraced willingly by all. This realization sets the course for the next chapter of his reign. The peaceful unity he envisions will require more than just laws and decrees. It will require a transformation of hearts, one that cannot be forced, but must be nurtured with patience and understanding. In the meantime, the demands of ruling an empire this vast continue to challenge Ashoka at every turn. The land he governs is rich in resources and culture, but it is also home to a myriad of different groups, each with its own set of needs, customs, and beliefs. Ashoka's task is not only to maintain order, but to ensure that these diverse groups feel valued and respected. It is a delicate balancing act, one that requires both wisdom and humility. He knows that his own beliefs, deeply rooted in the teachings of the Buddha, cannot be imposed on those who do not share them. Instead, he must foster an environment where different faiths and cultures can thrive, where tolerance and respect are the guiding principles of governance. As Ashoka navigates the complexities of his empire, the challenges of uniting such a diverse people grow more apparent. The sounds of courtly politics, once a constant rhythm in his life, now seem like a distant hum compared to the more personal challenges he faces. The quiet of his meditation chambers, where he once sought solace, now becomes a place of reflection on the empire he has built and the empire he still dreams of. In these moments, Ashoka begins to feel the weight of his decisions in a deeper way. Every policy, every decree, and every alliance must be carefully considered, not just for its impact on the empire's growth, but for its potential to foster peace and understanding among the people. Ashoka knows that he cannot simply sit back and allow his empire to grow without intervention. As the empire continues to expand, so too must his efforts to integrate these diverse peoples into the fold of his vision. His belief in Buddhism has shaped the way he governs, but it is not enough to simply impose these ideals upon the empire. He must work to ensure that every citizen, from the farthest reaches of the northern mountains to the southern shores, feels connected to the empire and to one another. This requires a deeper understanding of the complexities that come with such a diverse population, a challenge Ashoka is ready to face. The hum of activity in the palace is a constant reminder of the empire's growth. Ashoka's reach extends farther than ever before, but the challenges of governing such a vast land are beginning to become more clear. His vision of a unified, peaceful empire is not just a lofty ideal, it is a goal that must be worked toward every single day. And as the demands of leadership become more complex, Ashoka's reflections on how to manage such a diverse and growing empire deepen. He understands that while the path forward is uncertain, the journey to a peaceful, unified kingdom will require more than just strength. It will require a compassion that stretches across every corner of his empire. As the empire grows, Ashoka's transformation deepens, and the desire to leave a lasting legacy burns brightly within him. His commitment to spreading Buddhism, both as a personal journey and as the foundation of his reign, leads him to take bold action. The teachings of the Buddha, which have brought peace to his own soul, must now be shared with the entire empire and beyond. Ashoka begins to see his kingdom not just as a land to rule, but as a living testament to the power of compassion, unity, and wisdom. To solidify this vision, he turns his attention to the creation of lasting monuments that will carry the teachings of the Buddha far beyond his lifetime. The first of these monumental projects is the rock edicts, inscribed with Ashoka's edicts of peace, non-violence, and respect for all beings. These large stone slabs, etched with the words of the king, stand as silent witnesses to the transformation that has taken place within him and his empire. The sound of chisels and hammers rings out across the land as craftsmen work tirelessly to carve the edicts into the stone. The rhythmic clinking of tools against rock echoes through the vastness of the empire, marking a departure from the clash of weapons Ashoka once heard, replaced by the steady, purposeful strikes that carry with them a new kind of strength. Ashoka's vision is clear. These edicts will not only serve as a record of his reign, but as enduring symbols of the new path he has chosen for his empire. Each edict serves as a reminder of the virtues he wishes to instill in his people, virtues of kindness, nonviolence, and religious tolerance. The stones, placed strategically across the empire, become beacons of the Dharma, guiding all who encounter them toward a life of peace and compassion. Ashoka knows that the words he inscribes will last long after his reign has ended, shaping the future of the empire and its people for generations to come. But it is not just the rock edicts that will carry his message. As the empire expands, Ashoka commissions the construction of stupas, great, towering monuments that house the relics of the Buddha and symbolize the teachings of the Dharma. The sight of these stupas rising against the horizon is a testament to Ashoka's commitment to spreading the Buddha's message. These monuments, both grand and simple, dot the landscape, marking significant places in the life of the Buddha, and serving as physical reminders of the peace that Ashoka now seeks to bring to his kingdom. The construction of these stupas becomes a collective effort, bringing together artisans, monks, and laborers from all corners of the empire. As the sound of stone being shaped and clay being molded fills the air, Ashoka feels a deep sense of pride. These monuments are more than just structures. They are the embodiment of his spiritual journey, the physical manifestation of the ideals he has come to embrace. They represent the new direction he has taken, one that is rooted in compassion rather than conquest. As each stupa rises, so too does Ashoka's resolve to ensure that the teachings of the Buddha will be passed down through the ages. In the quiet moments, as Ashoka surveys the growing collection of stupas and edicts across the land, he reflects on what these monuments truly represent. They are not just symbols of his reign. They are his legacy, his way of ensuring that the peace he has fought for will endure long after he is gone. In building these monuments, Ashoka is not just securing the future of his empire, he is securing the future of his soul. He realizes that true immortality is not found in the power of a king, but in the lasting impact of his actions, in the hearts and minds he touches. Yet, even as these great structures rise, Ashoka is keenly aware of the fragility of human life. He knows that nothing in this world lasts forever, but the lessons of the Buddha, the teachings of peace and compassion, can transcend time and place. The monuments he builds, though physical in nature, are a testament to the enduring power of wisdom, kindness, and nonviolence. They are his gift to the future, a gift that will continue to shape the hearts of the people long after his empire has faded into history. As Ashoka's thoughts turn toward immortality and legacy, he knows that his reign, once marked by conquest and bloodshed, will now be defined by something far more profound. His legacy will not be found in the vastness of his empire or the battles he fought, but in the peace he has brought to his people and the wisdom he has shared with the world. The stupas and rock edicts, the symbols of his new reign, will stand as reminders of the power of transformation, both for the ruler and the ruled. With each stupa that rises, each edict that is carved into the stone, Ashoka's sense of purpose grows stronger. The empire he has built, once defined by strength and conquest, is now defined by peace and wisdom. As his thoughts turn toward the future, Ashoka knows that his work is not yet done. His kingdom is changing, and his legacy is being shaped with every monument, every edict, and every act of compassion. The sound of chisels against stone, the steady rhythm of construction, becomes a quiet song of hope and renewal. a song that will echo through the land for generations to come. Ashoka, once a conqueror, now stands as a builder of peace, and the monuments he creates will be his testament to the future. As the stupas rise and the edicts spread across the empire, Ashoka's vision of a peaceful, compassionate rule begins to take shape. But for Ashoka, peace cannot be simply a matter of spiritual ideals or grand monuments. It must be woven into the very fabric of governance, the laws that shape how the empire functions. The task before him is daunting, but Ashoka, now deeply committed to the teachings of the Buddha, knows that the law must reflect his new beliefs, his new way of ruling. It is not enough to simply speak of peace and compassion. He must embed them in the laws of the land. The scribes are summoned to the palace, their hands steady as they dip their quills into ink and begin to write. The sound of their work fills the air, quiet, methodical, as the new laws are crafted with precision and care. These laws will not be mere words. They will be the foundation of Ashoka's vision, a blueprint for a kingdom governed by kindness, respect, and justice. Every edict, every law is shaped by the teachings of the Buddha: nonviolence, tolerance, and a deep regard for all living beings. Ashoka knows that a kingdom cannot thrive if its people are oppressed or mistreated. And so, the laws he institutes seek to protect the weak, support the poor, and ensure that justice is served not with a heavy hand, but with fairness and compassion. In the palace courtyard, the rhythm of scribes' writing is matched by the soft clink of coins being distributed to those in need. Ashoka, once a ruler who sought wealth through conquest, now channels the resources of the empire into programs of social welfare. He believes that the true strength of a kingdom lies not in its wealth, but in the well-being of its people. To this end, he establishes hospitals, ensures that the elderly and the sick are cared for, and works to alleviate the suffering of the poor. The imperial treasury, once used to fuel the machinery of war, now funds projects that promote peace and prosperity for all. The transformation in governance is tangible. The courts that once dispensed justice with harshness and cruelty now operate under a new set of principles. Ashoka's laws aim to ensure fairness for all, regardless of status, wealth, or position. Punishments are no longer brutal or punitive, but are designed to rehabilitate and teach. The idea of restorative justice takes root, as Ashoka believes that compassion and understanding will yield more lasting results than fear and retribution. His own experiences, shaped by the horrors of Kalinga, and his journey into Buddhism, guide these reforms. The man who once used his power to strike fear into his enemies now uses it to foster peace and understanding among his people. Yet even as Ashoka institutes these new laws, he knows that change will not come easily. The empire, with its vast diversity of peoples and cultures, will not accept these reforms without resistance. The elite, many of whom have enjoyed the privileges of power and wealth, may be reluctant to relinquish their hold on the resources and influence they once controlled. But Ashoka's conviction remains unshaken. He understands that true leadership is not about maintaining control. It is about fostering the well-being of all, even at the expense of personal gain. The clink of coins may be a sound that signifies charity, but it also represents the redistribution of power, the shift from a kingdom ruled by fear to one governed by wisdom and compassion. The transformation Ashoka has set in motion is not only legal, but deeply cultural. The ideals of Buddhism permeate every corner of the empire, influencing how people interact with one another, how they treat their animals, and how they view the world. The sounds of prayer and meditation, once confined to the monastic orders, now echo through the streets as citizens take to their daily rituals of reflection and mindfulness. Ashoka's influence as a ruler has become inseparable from his role as a spiritual guide, and he knows that these laws will not only change the material conditions of his people, but will shape their hearts as well. In the quiet of the palace, Ashoka sits, watching as the laws take shape. He thinks of the future, of the generations yet to come, and the empire that will remain long after he is gone. The work of governance, once a task filled with the harshness of military might, now feels like a labor of love. He is not just the ruler of an empire. He is a guide, a teacher, a father to his people. As the scribes finish their work, Ashoka stands and surveys the fruits of his labor. These laws will define the future of his empire. They will be his legacy, not just as a king, but as a ruler who sought to lead with compassion. As the final edicts are written and the laws are made official, Ashoka reflects on the journey he has undertaken, how far he has come from the ambitious, ruthless conqueror he once was. The sound of ink on parchment, the soft murmur of his advisors, the rhythmic clink of coins, they all serve as a reminder of the change that has taken place. Ashoka's reign, once defined by violence, is now defined by wisdom and compassion. He knows that the journey ahead is not without its challenges, but as he looks upon his kingdom, he feels a sense of peace that has eluded him for much of his life. In the coming days, Ashoka's new laws will be put to the test. The transition from a kingdom of conquest to a kingdom of compassion is not without its struggles. But Ashoka is confident that, in time, his vision for a just and peaceful empire will take root. The work is not finished. It is only just beginning. And with each new law, each new reform, Ashoka takes one more step on the path toward building the legacy of peace that he has always dreamed of. The sounds of battle, once a constant rhythm in Ashoka's life, have begun to fade into the distant past. The clash of weapons, the roar of war cries, and the drumbeats that marked the march of his armies now seem foreign to him. It is as though they belong to someone else, to the man he once was, a king driven by the need to conquer, to expand, to secure his reign through strength and violence. But Ashoka is no longer that man. He has seen the horrors of war up close, the bloodshed of Kalinga, the screams of the dying, the devastation left in its wake. The vision of his empire, once built on the foundation of military might, now feels distant and unsettling. In the quiet of his chambers, Ashoka reflects on the path that brought him here. The weight of Kalinga still presses on his heart, a reminder of the lives lost, the families torn apart, and the irreversible damage done. He can no longer ignore the truth that lies before him. Violence, no matter the justification, only breeds more violence. The cost of conquest is too high, and Ashoka, once driven by ambition and power, now understands that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the courage to build and heal. And so, with a heavy heart, Ashoka makes a vow. He will renounce violence, not just as a king, but as a man. His reign will no longer be defined by war or the imposition of power through force. Instead, he will rule with kindness, tolerance, and compassion. The empire, once a machine of conquest, will now become a beacon of peace, a place where justice and understanding replace the need for bloodshed. This decision marks the beginning of a new era for the Maurya Empire, an era of healing, of reconstruction, of spiritual growth. The sound of soldiers' boots, once a familiar and reassuring cadence, now feels alien to Ashoka. The warriors who had once marched under his banner, their swords drawn in preparation for battle, now lay down their weapons in silence. The army that had once been a tool of domination is now a force for peace. Ashoka addresses his soldiers, not as a conqueror, but as a leader who seeks to guide them toward a new purpose. He tells them that the time for war is over, that the empire they protect will no longer be won by force, but by wisdom and compassion. The soldiers, once eager for battle, now listen intently, their faces a mixture of uncertainty and hope. The world they once knew has changed, and they too must adapt. Ashoka's decision ripples through the empire, from the court to the farthest reaches of the kingdom. The nobles, once accustomed to the spoils of war, now find themselves in the presence of a king whose priorities have shifted. The murmurs of discontent are quiet at first, but Ashoka is resolute. He does not seek their approval. He seeks a kingdom built on peace. The old ways of domination and conquest give way to new ways of governance, laws that protect the weak, promote welfare, and encourage understanding between different peoples. The old court, filled with the sounds of strategy and plotting, is now a place where discussions of justice and kindness take center stage. In the days that follow, Ashoka's rejection of violence becomes more than a personal decision. It is a societal shift, a new way of life for the entire empire. The merchants in the marketplaces begin to feel the change, as the economy shifts from one that relies on military campaigns to one that supports cultural and spiritual growth. The artisans, once employed to build weapons of war, now craft monuments and sculptures that reflect the teachings of the Buddha. The peasants, who once feared the soldiers who rode through their villages, now look to the king with a sense of hope, knowing that they live under a ruler who values their well-being over the pursuit of power. Ashoka's family, too, is affected by this shift. The queen, who has long been a supporter of his reign, watches as her husband's transformation takes root in the very heart of their kingdom. She sees the change in Ashoka's eyes, the way he no longer carries the weight of conquest in his gaze, but the weight of responsibility to his people. Their relationship, once strained by the demands of the throne, begins to heal as Ashoka's values of peace and compassion take root in their home. His children, who have been raised with the knowledge that they are heirs to an empire built on power, now begin to understand that the true legacy of their father is one of wisdom, not war. In the palace, the sounds of royal life shift as well. The once constant hum of political scheming and military strategy is replaced by a quieter, more introspective atmosphere. Ashoka's court is filled with scholars, monks, and advisors who guide him in his mission to spread the Dharma throughout the empire. His days are no longer filled with the strategy of battle, but with the quiet work of governance, seeking out the welfare of his people, fostering unity among the diverse cultures and religions of the empire, and ensuring that the ideals of Buddhism are woven into the fabric of everyday life. As Ashoka stands at the forefront of this new era, he knows that his decision to reject violence will not be without its challenges. There will be those who resist, those who cling to the old ways of power. But Ashoka is unshaken. He knows that true leadership is not about power or domination. It is about guiding people to a place of peace and understanding. And so, with each passing day, the empire begins to change, the echoes of war fading away, replaced by the gentle hum of a kingdom moving toward a future defined by compassion. The path ahead is still uncertain, but Ashoka is no longer the man he was. The king who once ruled with force and fear is now a ruler who governs with kindness, and it is this kindness that will guide the empire through the trials that lie ahead. The rejection of violence, once a difficult decision, now feels like the only choice. And in the quiet moments, when Ashoka reflects on the world he has created, he knows that the legacy he will leave behind will not be one of battle, but of peace. As Ashoka's transformation continues, the role of his ministers becomes more pivotal than ever. These trusted advisors, once brought to his side for their expertise in warfare and statecraft, now help him implement his vision of a peaceful and compassionate empire. The once bustling halls of the royal palace, filled with the clamor of military strategy, are now quieter, more contemplative. The conversations between Ashoka and his ministers, once centered on battle plans and territorial expansion, are now focused on governance, social welfare, and the spread of the Buddha's teachings. In these discussions, the low hum of diplomacy fills the air, as Ashoka and his ministers begin to shape an empire based on compassion, justice, and unity. In the early days of his reign, Ashoka's ministers were hesitant, unsure of how to reconcile their previous experience with the king's new ideals. But over time, Ashoka's unwavering commitment to peace and wisdom wins their trust. These advisors, once accustomed to the harsh realities of power, begin to see the potential of a kingdom governed by kindness and tolerance. Ashoka's faith in them deepens as well, for they are not just his ministers, but his partners in a great experiment, creating a kingdom that thrives not on the strength of its military might but on the strength of its moral character. The palace, once a place of tension and unrest, now hums with a quieter, more deliberate energy. The ministers gather in the royal chambers, their discussions measured and thoughtful. There is no longer the sense of urgency that once filled these rooms, no rushing from one military campaign to another, but a sense of purpose, grounded in the shared understanding that they are building something lasting. The ministers offer their advice, always with respect, but now guided by Ashoka's vision of a kingdom where people are valued above territory, and compassion trumps conquest. Ashoka listens intently, his mind sharp but open, as he considers the needs of the empire. The empire's vastness, both in geography and diversity, requires careful governance. His ministers help him navigate these complexities, offering their knowledge on trade, agriculture, justice, and the practical application of the Buddha's teachings. The ministries that once dealt with matters of war now turn their attention to building infrastructure, improving the quality of life for the people, and ensuring that the principles of peace are reflected in every aspect of governance. The ministers, once hesitant to shift away from the ways of old, now see the wisdom in this new direction and begin to guide Ashoka with a sense of purpose and dedication that mirrors his own. The trust between Ashoka and his ministers strengthens with every passing day. What once seemed like an insurmountable challenge, transforming an empire built on conquest into one rooted in peace, begins to feel possible. The ministers, loyal to Ashoka and to his vision, become not just advisors, but active participants in the creation of a new world. Their bonds of loyalty and trust deepen as they share the common goal of shaping an empire where justice and compassion reign. It is not just a political alliance, it is a partnership founded on shared values and a collective desire to make the world a better place. As Ashoka and his ministers continue to work together, the effects of their labor begin to ripple throughout the empire. The sound of scrolls being unrolled and ink being poured onto parchment marks the creation of new laws, new initiatives, and new plans for the future. The empire, once marked by the noise of war and the sharp clash of swords, is now filled with the sounds of cooperation, understanding, and growth. The ministers, once warriors, now find themselves engaged in a different kind of battle, one of ideas, one that requires not only intellect and strategy, but compassion and foresight. But Ashoka knows that this transformation cannot rest solely on his ministers. It must reach every corner of the empire, from the richest noble to the humblest peasant. As the ministers work alongside him, Ashoka realizes that the task before them is monumental. The future of the empire lies not only in the policies they create, but in how those policies are embraced by the people. It is here that Ashoka begins to focus on the spiritual education of his people, ensuring that the principles of Buddhism reach beyond the palace and permeate every aspect of daily life. His ministers will help spread these teachings, but it is the people who must carry them forward. In the quiet moments, when Ashoka reflects on the work he has done and the work yet to come, he feels a deep sense of pride in the transformation of his ministers. They are no longer simply tools of statecraft. They are allies in a shared vision. The empire they are building is not just one of bricks and stone, but of compassion and wisdom. As the ministers take Ashoka's vision and turn it into action, They are not merely serving a king, they are serving a higher purpose, one that will shape the future of the empire for generations to come. With each passing day, Ashoka's faith in his ministers grows. They have proven themselves not only as skilled advisors, but as men of character and wisdom. Together, they begin to build something that will endure long after Ashoka's reign has ended, an empire that thrives not through fear, but through compassion, an empire where peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of understanding. The quiet hum of diplomacy that fills the air now echoes through every corner of the empire, signaling the birth of a new era. As the chapter draws to a close, the bond between Ashoka and his ministers strengthens, and the path ahead becomes clearer. The empire, once defined by the sword, is now defined by its commitment to peace and justice. The work is far from over, but Ashoka knows that with his ministers by his side, the dream of a peaceful empire is within reach. Their loyalty and wisdom will guide him as he continues to reshape the future of his kingdom. Despite the peace and wisdom that now characterize Ashoka's reign, the burdens of leadership are never far from his mind. As the king's influence stretches across the empire, so too does the weight of the responsibilities he carries as a father. His children, heirs to the throne, must learn what it means to rule, not through the power of the sword, but through the strength of wisdom, compassion, and justice. The palace, once filled with the sounds of war and conquest, now echoes with a different kind of noise, the laughter of children at play, a sound that contrasts sharply with the stern lessons they receive from their father. These lessons are not about military tactics or the art of war. They are lessons in governance, morality, and how to lead with kindness and understanding. Ashoka looks upon his children with a mixture of pride and concern. They are young, full of promise, yet also burdened by the legacy of their father's reign. They have grown up in a world where peace is the ideal, but also a world where the weight of the empire rests upon their shoulders. The path they must follow is not an easy one, and Ashoka knows that the role of ruler will come with challenges he cannot prepare them for entirely. His own journey, filled with hardship and self-discovery, has been shaped by forces beyond his control. The same will be true for them, though Ashoka hopes that their reign will be marked by the compassion and wisdom he has worked so hard to cultivate. The palace, which once echoed with the sounds of military strategy and the harsh calls of war, now hums with quieter, more intimate moments. The laughter of his children fills the halls as they run and play, their voices light and carefree. Yet in the midst of their innocence, Ashoka knows that their future is already taking shape. They are growing up in a world where the ideals of Buddhism have been embraced by the empire, but the shadow of their inheritance looms large. Ashoka watches them, his heart heavy with both love and responsibility. He wants them to learn the ways of leadership, to be prepared for the challenges they will face. But he also wants them to grow into kind and just rulers, people who will govern not for power, but for the good of their people. The lessons Ashoka teaches his children are not always easy. He speaks to them about justice and compassion, about the importance of ruling with a steady hand, but also with a heart full of empathy. He teaches them that true strength lies in understanding others, in listening to their needs, and in using one's power to uplift, not to dominate. As they sit before him, their young faces full of determination and curiosity, Ashoka can see the future taking shape before him. But he also knows that the weight of the crown will be heavier for them than it was for him. His children must learn to balance the demands of leadership with the ideals of peace. They must navigate the complexities of governing a vast and diverse empire, while also remaining true to the values of kindness and non-violence that Ashoka has made his cornerstone. The palace, once a place of cold political maneuvering, now feels more like a home, a place where Ashoka's children learn the lessons of life not just from books, but from the example their father sets. As they grow older, Ashoka's children begin to take on more responsibility, accompanying him to court, learning the art of diplomacy, and meeting with officials from across the empire. These moments, though filled with the weight of their future roles, are also filled with the simple joy of shared time with their father. Ashoka, despite the burdens he carries as king, finds peace in these moments, watching his children learn and grow, their laughter a reminder of the hope that remains in the world, even in the most challenging times. Yet Ashoka is not blind to the challenges his children will face as they come of age. The empire they will inherit is a complex one, shaped by centuries of tradition and conflict. While Ashoka has worked to build a kingdom based on peace, compassion, and justice, he knows that the road ahead will not be without its struggles. The legacy of violence, of conquest, and of power will always be a part of the empire's history, and his children will have to reconcile these contradictions. Ashoka's role as a father, guiding them through these challenges, becomes more important than ever. In these moments of reflection, Ashoka begins to understand the full scope of his own responsibilities, not just as a king, but as a father. He is not just shaping the future of the empire, he is shaping the future of his children, and through them, the future of the Maurya dynasty. He wants them to be rulers who will carry forward his vision of a compassionate and just empire. But he also knows that they must make their own way. His role as a father is not to impose his will on them, but to guide them with wisdom, to teach them how to lead with love and understanding. As Ashoka watches his children grow and learn, he is reminded of the journey he himself has taken. From the ruthless conqueror he once was, to the compassionate ruler he has become. His legacy will not just be in the monuments he has built, or the laws he has enacted. It will be in the way his children carry forward the principles of peace and justice. He is not only passing on an empire, he is passing on a vision, a hope for a future where compassion is the guiding force of leadership. The quiet moments in the palace, filled with the laughter and lessons of his children, become a reminder of what Ashoka truly seeks to leave behind. Not just an empire, but a legacy of peace, kindness, and wisdom. As the weight of leadership continues to settle on his shoulders, Ashoka reflects on the role he plays not only as king, but as father, and how both roles are inextricably linked in shaping the future of his kingdom. As Ashoka's reign continues to evolve, so too does his commitment to the teachings of Buddhism. The peace he has fostered within the borders of the Maurya Empire begins to stir within him a greater ambition, not just to rule with wisdom and compassion within his own kingdom, but to share the lessons of the Buddha with the world beyond. The empire he has built, once centered on military might and conquest, is now a realm that thrives on peace and spiritual growth. Ashoka's desire to spread the message of the Buddha is no longer confined to the walls of the palace or the borders of his empire. It stretches far beyond, reaching into distant lands and foreign cultures. With a deep sense of purpose, Ashoka sends missionaries to far-off lands, far beyond the familiar hills of India. The peaceful doctrine of Buddhism, with its focus on non-violence, tolerance, and compassion, begins to travel like a quiet river, winding its way through diverse territories and cultures. The soft hum of monks' chants becomes the soundtrack to this spreading movement. Ashoka's emissaries, calm and determined, carry the teachings of the Buddha into lands where they have never been heard. These monks are not warriors, nor are they conquerors. They are teachers, spreading a message of peace, of understanding, and of the power of spiritual practice to heal the hearts of all people, regardless of their background. The monks' travels take them across the mountain passes and across vast rivers, into lands that are foreign to Ashoka, but not to the teachings they carry. They arrive in kingdoms that are unfamiliar with Buddhism, in places where the people have their own rich spiritual traditions. Yet wherever they go, The monks are met not with resistance but with curiosity. The principles of the Buddha resonate with those they meet, especially the emphasis on compassion, non-violence, and the search for inner peace. Ashoka's vision for a world where these teachings guide the hearts of leaders and the lives of common people begins to take root in foreign soil. The Buddha's teachings, carried by Ashoka's missionaries, find fertile ground in new lands. In distant corners of the world, the stories of Ashoka's transformation and his embrace of Buddhism spark interest and awe. The empire he once ruled with the might of a sword is now a kingdom built on the foundation of love, peace, and wisdom, and its influence grows. The echoes of Ashoka's journey, from the bloodied battlefields of Kalinga to the peaceful halls of his palace, are heard in the distant lands that now welcome Buddhism. As the teachings spread, the peaceful nature of Ashoka's reign is mirrored in the growing influence of the doctrine of the Buddha. For Ashoka, the spread of Buddhism is not just an expansion of spiritual practice. It is a testament to the change within himself and his empire. As he looks out over the lands of his vast kingdom, he knows that his influence will last far beyond the borders of India. It is no longer enough to simply rule over his own people. He wants to shape the world, to create a legacy of peace that will endure across generations and across nations. The sounds of the monks' chants carry across the land like a gentle breeze, their message of peace and compassion reaching into the hearts of those who hear it. Ashoka, standing in the palace with the whispers of the world beyond his walls in his ears, begins to see the full scope of the impact his transformation will have. He is not just the king of an empire. He is now a beacon of hope for all who seek peace and wisdom. The spread of Buddhism, like the rivers that flow from the mountains, moves with quiet strength, nourishing the lands it touches and creating a new path for the future of mankind. Ashoka's vision for a world united in peace and compassion is unfolding before his eyes. The teachings of the Buddha, carried by his missionaries, are transforming not just India, but distant kingdoms and cultures. The lessons of nonviolence, the importance of understanding, and the pursuit of inner peace begin to shape the governance and spiritual practices of lands that once knew only conflict and strife. The ripple effect of Ashoka's embrace of Buddhism is spreading, growing wider and deeper, like the roots of a great tree taking hold in the soil. The transition from a kingdom of conquest to an empire of peace is complete, and now Ashoka's influence extends far beyond the borders of his land. The quiet hum of monks' chants becomes a melody that transcends national boundaries, reaching the hearts of people from every walk of life. Ashoka's reign, defined by its commitment to the peaceful teachings of the Buddha, becomes a shining example of how a ruler's transformation can ripple outward, touching the world in ways that cannot be measured by military victories or territorial conquests. As Ashoka looks to the future, he sees not just an empire that thrives under his rule, but a world that is beginning to embrace the ideals he has come to cherish. His work is far from finished, but the seeds of peace he has planted are already beginning to grow. The land he has ruled, once scarred by war and ambition, is now a testament to the enduring power of compassion and the world he has dreamed of. A world of understanding, unity, and peace is no longer just a dream, but a living, breathing reality. As Ashoka's reign stretches on, the weight of leadership never seems to lessen. The demands of governing a vast and diverse empire are constant, and his responsibilities as a ruler remain as pressing as ever. But amidst the flurry of court meetings, political alliances, and the quiet hum of daily affairs, Ashoka has found a sanctuary, one that requires no advisors, no ministers, and no military strategy. It is within the stillness of his own heart, in the peace of his spiritual practice, that Ashoka finds respite from the constant noise of the world. Each day, Ashoka devotes time to meditation and prayer. He has transformed his personal chambers into a space for reflection, where the only sounds are the soft murmur of his prayers and the gentle rustle of the incense that burns beside him. The world outside may be bustling with the activity of a thriving empire, but within the walls of his sanctuary, Ashoka finds a quiet peace that contrasts sharply with the demands of his rule. In these moments, he reconnects with the teachings of the Buddha, letting the wisdom of the Dharma guide his thoughts and actions. Ashoka's practice is not merely a ritual or a form of religious observance. It is the foundation of his rule. Through meditation, he learns to quiet the storm of his thoughts, to still the turbulent waves of ambition, and to find clarity in the midst of chaos. The soft rhythm of his breathing mirrors the calm he seeks to cultivate within himself. The peace he finds in these moments of solitude deepens his understanding of the teachings, and he begins to see them not just as ideals to follow, but as the very essence of his kingship. In a world where everything demands his attention, these moments of stillness allow him to center himself, to realign his heart with the principles of nonviolence, compassion, and wisdom. But as much as Ashoka longs for this inner peace, the noise of the world continues to press in on him. The palace is never truly silent. The chatter of his ministers, the petitions of his people, the steady rhythm of empire, all of it intrudes upon his quietude. There are moments when the weight of his duties feels overwhelming, when the demands of his empire seem to drown out the peaceful whispers of his spiritual practice. Ashoka struggles to reconcile the tranquility he finds in meditation with the realities of being an emperor. The empire that once seemed like a force of nature, a testament to his power and strength, now feels like a burden, one that pulls him away from the very peace he seeks to embody. The palace, which had once been a symbol of power, now feels like a labyrinth of responsibilities, each path leading to yet another challenge. Ashoka often finds himself torn between the peace of his inner world and the noise of his outward obligations. There are moments when he wishes to remain in the quiet of his chambers, to immerse himself fully in his spiritual practice, but duty calls. The empire requires his leadership, his decisions, and his presence. He is not just a king, but the spiritual leader of a nation that looks to him for guidance, and the weight of that responsibility cannot be ignored. Despite these challenges, Ashoka's devotion to Buddhism remains unwavering. Each time he sits in meditation, he is reminded of the simplicity and clarity that the teachings bring. Even as his empire grows and the demands of his reign intensify, his connection to the Buddha's wisdom remains a steady anchor. His spiritual practice becomes a counterbalance to the harsh realities of rule, grounding him when the pressures of governance threaten to overwhelm him. The soft hum of monks chanting in the distance, the gentle flicker of candles beside him, and the steady rhythm of his own breath serve as reminders that peace is not just a concept, it is a way of living, one that must be nurtured in every action, no matter how small. Ashoka knows that his inner journey is not just a personal one. It is deeply intertwined with his role as ruler. The lessons he learns in his meditation chambers are not just for his own benefit. They are lessons he must carry into his rule, into his decisions, and into the way he governs his people. He begins to understand that true leadership is not about controlling others, but about mastering oneself. In this quiet space, Ashoka's spiritual journey and his role as emperor converge. His meditation is no longer just a retreat from the world, it is the foundation of the wise and compassionate governance he seeks to bring to his empire. As Ashoka continues to deepen his spiritual practice, the empire around him begins to feel the effects of his transformation. His rule, once defined by conquest and power, now radiates with the peaceful presence he has cultivated within himself. The principles of Buddhism, non-violence, tolerance, and compassion, become the guiding lights of his reign. Ashoka's commitment to peace, both within himself and within his empire, begins to shape the policies he enacts and the way he interacts with his people. The teachings of the Buddha now serve as the framework for his governance, and his reign becomes a reflection of the inner peace he has found through his practice. But even as Ashoka grows in his spiritual practice, he knows that the journey is far from complete. The world is complex, and the challenges of ruling a vast empire will never cease. His inner peace will continue to be tested by the noise and demands of the world, but Ashoka is resolved to maintain the balance between his spiritual journey and his responsibilities as king. Each day, he returns to his meditation, grounding himself once more in the teachings of the Buddha. With each breath, he seeks to align his inner world with the world around him, and in this pursuit, he finds the strength to continue leading with wisdom, compassion, and understanding. As the sound of prayer drums fills the air, Ashoka's spiritual journey deepens, and the transformation within him grows ever more profound. His reign, once shaped by conquest, is now guided by the teachings of peace, and the empire he leads is beginning to reflect the compassion and understanding he has cultivated in his heart. The path ahead is still long, but Ashoka knows that as he continues to walk it, he will carry the peace of his practice into the world, leading not with force, but with the quiet strength of wisdom. As the years pass, Ashoka's transformation solidifies into something that transcends personal growth. It becomes his life's work, his legacy. The Dharma, the moral law that guides all his actions, becomes the bedrock upon which Ashoka's empire is built. No longer driven by the thirst for power or the need for conquest, Ashoka's daily life now reflects the teachings of Buddhism. Each decision he makes, each law he institutes, is shaped by the desire to live in harmony with the universe, to lead with compassion, and to spread peace wherever he can. The sound of parchment rustling fills the quiet of the palace as Ashoka pens his edicts, words that will travel far beyond the walls of his court, carried by messengers to every corner of his empire. His edicts are not just proclamations of power, they are expressions of his commitment to the Dharma. Each edict, written with care and deliberation, reflects Ashoka's deep understanding of the moral law that now guides his every action. He writes not to impose his will, but to share a vision of a world where kindness, tolerance, and justice prevail. As the ink flows onto the paper, Ashoka's inner peace resonates with each stroke, creating a legacy that is grounded in the very principles of the Buddha. The palace around him, once a place of cold authority and military strategy, now feels like a sanctuary, quiet, reflective, and serene. The sounds of the court, once dominated by the noise of political maneuvering and military planning, now fade into the background. Ashoka's thoughts turn inward, and his rule is marked by a calm wisdom that contrasts sharply with the ambition of his earlier years. The quiet of the palace becomes a reflection of his inner peace, as Ashoka moves through each day, not with the restless energy of a conqueror, but with the steady presence of a ruler who knows that true power lies in the moral strength to act with righteousness. His commitment to the Dharma, once an abstract ideal, has become the guiding principle of his reign. As Ashoka lives according to the tenets of Buddhism, his actions begin to reflect the values he holds most dear: non-violence, compassion, and respect for all living beings. He sees himself not as a distant monarch, but as a servant to the people, a guardian of their well-being, and a protector of peace. The edicts he writes, the laws he enacts, and the decisions he makes are all infused with this deeper sense of purpose. But Ashoka's commitment to the Dharma extends far beyond his own actions. It influences those around him, his ministers, his family, and the people of his empire. The ripple effects of his transformation begin to spread, reshaping not only the political landscape, but the spiritual fabric of his kingdom. His ministers, once advisors skilled in statecraft and military strategy, now find themselves aligned with Ashoka's vision of a compassionate and just empire. The court, once filled with scheming and intrigue, now becomes a place of dialogue and reflection, where decisions are made not just for the sake of power, but for the well-being of the people. Ashoka's family, too, feels the impact of his transformation. His children, raised with the expectation of following in his footsteps, begin to understand the true nature of leadership. They learn that to rule is not to dominate, but to serve. The palace, once a place of tension and political maneuvering, now becomes a space where compassion is not just encouraged, but expected. Ashoka's example inspires those closest to him to live according to the same values that have guided him, values rooted in the teachings of the Buddha. The ripple of Ashoka's commitment to the Dharma extends even further, beyond the walls of the palace and the halls of the court. As his edicts spread across the empire, they begin to shape the lives of ordinary people as well. The farmers in the fields, the merchants in the markets, and the artisans in their workshops begin to understand the moral law that governs their king's actions. They see the effects of Ashoka's leadership in the way they are treated, in the way justice is meted out, and in the peace that gradually settles over the land. The empire, once defined by the harshness of war, is now marked by the quiet strength of Ashoka's spiritual vision. The people, once subjects in a kingdom built on fear, now find themselves living in a world where compassion and fairness are the guiding forces. In these moments of reflection, Ashoka realizes that his most enduring legacy will not be the monuments he has built, nor the vastness of his empire. His true legacy will be in the way his life has been a reflection of the Dharma, the moral law that has guided his actions, his thoughts, and his decisions will shape not just his reign, but the future of his empire. The people who have lived under his rule will carry the lessons of compassion, tolerance, and non-violence with them long after his reign has ended. His legacy will not just be one of power, but one of peace. Ashoka's journey, from conqueror to compassionate ruler, has been a long and difficult one. Yet, as he stands before the monuments of his rule, his edicts, his stupas, and the kingdom he has shaped, he feels a deep sense of fulfillment. The path he has walked is not an easy one, but it is the path he was always meant to take. And as he contemplates the legacy he will leave behind, Ashoka knows that the teachings of the Buddha, the Dharma, will continue to guide not just his empire, but the world for generations to come. The transformation within Ashoka has reached its pinnacle, but the work of spreading the Dharma is far from over. As he looks to the future, he knows that his legacy will not be defined by what he has already achieved, but by how the teachings he has embraced continue to shape the world. The peaceful empire he has built is a testament to the power of the Dharma, and Ashoka, at long last, understands the true depth of his own transformation. Ashoka's reign has evolved in ways he could not have imagined in the early days of his rule. What began as a fierce desire for conquest has blossomed into something far more profound, an empire grounded in peace, compassion, and the well-being of his people. As his reign moves forward, the pulse of the kingdom is no longer measured by the clash of swords, but by the hum of daily life, the bustling markets, the rhythmic sounds of workers toiling in their crafts, the laughter of children running through the streets, and the gentle exchanges of traders and families. This is what Ashoka now strives to protect and nurture, the life of his people. His commitment to the welfare of the common folk has become the foundation of his rule. Ashoka recognizes that his true responsibility as king is not just to lead from the throne, but to ensure the prosperity and happiness of those who make up the fabric of the empire. From the farmers who till the soil to the artisans who create the empire's treasures, he understands that their well-being is directly tied to the strength of the kingdom. The soft murmur of conversations in the royal court, now filled with discussions about social welfare and justice, reflects this shift. Ashoka's empire is no longer built on the spoils of war, but on the hope that all people, regardless of their station, can live in dignity and peace. The changes he has made are evident in every corner of the empire. The markets, once sites of struggle and strife, now hum with the rhythm of trade and community. The soft clink of coins, a symbol of the growing prosperity of the people, carries with it the promise of fairness and redistribution. Ashoka's laws, now shaped by his understanding of the Dharma, guide the empire toward a more just and compassionate future. The sound of these coins in the hands of the common folk is not just the sound of commerce, but a tangible reminder that the wealth of the empire is not just for the elite, but for all who contribute to its success. Yet even as Ashoka's vision of a peaceful empire begins to take root, he knows that this transformation is not without its struggles. The kingdom he rules is vast and diverse, made up of countless cultures, languages, and traditions. There are challenges in uniting such a disparate land, but Ashoka's belief in the power of compassion guides him. The court, once filled with the noise of war and political scheming, is now a place where the voices of different communities, faiths, and backgrounds are heard, respected, and integrated into the decisions that shape the future of the empire. The empire's strength lies not in its ability to control, but in its ability to listen, to understand, and to foster unity through respect for diversity. The marketplace itself has become a symbol of this new unity. The sounds of diverse communities, each with their own way of life, their own songs, their own crafts, mixed together to create a rich tapestry of shared experience. Ashoka watches as the people of his empire, once divided by their differences, begin to see themselves as part of something larger, something greater than any one kingdom or belief. The marketplace, once a battleground for resources and power, has become a place of exchange, not just of goods, but of ideas, cultures, and values. In these moments of quiet reflection, Ashoka understands that his most important task is not merely governing the empire, but ensuring that the people feel seen and valued. He has come to realize that the happiness of his people is the true measure of his success. His kingdom is not just a realm of land and territory. It is a community, a shared space where compassion and understanding guide every interaction, from the smallest gesture to the grandest decision. As the days go by, the ripple effects of Ashoka's policies and vision become more apparent. The lives of the common people are improving. Their voices are being heard, and their needs are being addressed. The empire, once a place of conquest and fear, now becomes a land where peace and prosperity grow from the seeds of compassion and justice. Ashoka's commitment to the well-being of his people has redefined the very nature of what it means to be an emperor. It is no longer about power or control. It is about nurturing the potential of every citizen, about lifting them up so that they can contribute to the collective good. The work is far from done. The empire is vast, and the needs of its people are many. Yet Ashoka is resolute. His legacy will not be defined by the wars he has fought or the lands he has conquered, but by the lives he has touched and the peace he has fostered. The change in his kingdom is not just a political one. It is a cultural shift, a transformation in the way people understand power, leadership, and community. The common people, once silent in their suffering, now have a voice. The empire, once defined by conquest, is now defined by compassion. And the people are at the heart of this new vision. As Ashoka looks to the future, he knows that the true test of his reign will be in how his people, the heart of the empire, continue to thrive. The sounds of the marketplace, the soft clink of coins, the laughter of children, and the hum of artisans' work are the echoes of a new era, one where peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of understanding. And it is this understanding, more than anything else, that will shape Ashoka's lasting legacy. The empire Ashoka now rules is one far different from the one he once conquered. In the quiet of the palace at night, he can feel it. The absence of the clamor of battle, the absence of the war drums, the absence of soldiers marching. The palace, once echoing with the sounds of military strategy and the urgency of preparing for war, is now filled with a stillness that feels almost foreign to him. The silence that pervades the kingdom is not the quiet of an empire in decay, but the profound calm that follows the cessation of war. It is a silence that is both comforting and unsettling, a reminder that the world Ashoka built has been reshaped, and the peace he sought has taken root. As the moonlight filters through the windows of the palace, Ashoka sits in solitude, deep in thought. He recalls the days when the sounds of battle filled his ears, when the clash of swords, the thundering of hooves, and the rallying cries of his armies were the music of his reign. Those were the days when his empire expanded, when his name was feared across the land, when victory was defined by the sheer force of his will. The noise of war, once so familiar, now seems like a distant memory, as though it belonged to someone else, someone far removed from the man he has become. The contrast between the sounds of the past and the quiet of the present is striking. Ashoka reflects on the battles he fought, the victories he claimed, and the cost of each conquest. With each city he conquered, each battle he won, he gained more land, more power. But he also lost something. The weight of Kalinga still presses on his heart, the memory of those lost in the pursuit of expansion. The faces of the fallen haunt him, and he knows that while his empire is vast, the peace that now fills its borders has come at an unthinkable cost. In the silence that now envelops his kingdom, Ashoka begins to understand the full extent of what peace means. Peace is not merely the absence of war. It is the end of suffering, the cessation of pain, the quiet after the storm. But it is also the acknowledgement of the scars left behind, the recognition that even in the stillness, the echoes of past violence remain. Ashoka has learned that true peace is not easily won, nor is it without its own burden. The peace he now enjoys is a fragile one, built not only on the teachings of Buddhism, but on the painful sacrifices of the past. His kingdom may now be filled with the sounds of prosperity and harmony, but the silence of peace is filled with the weight of everything that was lost along the way. As he walks through the palace halls, the quiet is almost overwhelming. The rustle of robes and the soft steps of his ministers now fill the air, but there is no longer the urgency that once accompanied every decision. The absence of conflict has created a calm that, at times, feels almost like emptiness. Ashoka finds himself questioning if he is truly prepared for this new era. The silence, after war, is not only the peace of the land, but also the quiet of his own soul. In the stillness, Ashoka faces his own internal conflict. He knows that the wars he fought were necessary for the empire's survival at the time, but he also knows that the cost was too great. Now, the quiet that follows feels like a reckoning, a time to reflect on the choices he made and the consequences that still echo in the hearts of his people. This silence, while comforting, also brings with it a sense of responsibility. The kingdom he now governs is not one built on the conquests of war, but on the fragile peace he has fought so hard to establish. Ashoka understands that true peace requires constant care, that it is a living, breathing entity that must be nurtured. The silence of the palace at night is a reminder that peace cannot be taken for granted. It must be defended not with weapons, but with wisdom, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to the well-being of his people. As Ashoka contemplates the quiet of the palace, the stillness of the kingdom, and the weight of his past, he realizes that peace has its own cost. The empire he has built, while prosperous and united, is shaped by the struggles he has faced and the sacrifices he has made. His journey, from a conqueror to a compassionate ruler, has not been without its difficulties. And the silence that now fills the palace is not the end of his challenges, but the beginning of a new chapter. This peace, though hard won, must be protected and preserved. It will not remain if it is ignored or taken for granted. Ashoka's realization that true peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of understanding sets the tone for the next stage of his reign. His journey is far from complete. The silence of the kingdom is not a lull in the action, but a moment of reflection before the next chapter of his leadership unfolds. As Ashoka watches his children grow, he is filled with a sense of both pride and concern. The empire he has shaped, once defined by conquest and bloodshed, is now a place where peace, compassion, and spiritual growth are the guiding forces. His children, born into this new world, have been raised in a kingdom that values kindness over power, wisdom over strength, and understanding over domination. In the palace, the laughter of children echoes through the halls, a sound that fills Ashoka with warmth. The future of the empire, at least in this moment, seems full of promise. But even in the joy of these moments, Ashoka cannot escape the weight of his responsibilities as a father. His children, heirs to the throne, are the future of the Maurya Empire, and the thought of what they will inherit fills him with both hope and uncertainty. While they grow up in a world of peace, a world that embraces the teachings of the Buddha, Ashoka is acutely aware that the challenges they will face will be different from the ones he faced in his youth. The world of conquest, of military might, is behind them, but new struggles await. His children will need to carry forward the values he has spent his life instilling in the empire, and Ashoka wonders if they are ready for that task. The sounds of lessons fill the air in the palace. Tutors, well versed in the teachings of Buddhism and the arts of governance, instruct the young princes and princesses. The lessons are not about strategy and war, but about justice, compassion, and how to rule with wisdom. Ashoka watches them, his heart swelling with pride at their curiosity, their eagerness to learn. But beneath this pride is a deep, gnawing fear. Will they understand the true weight of what it means to rule with peace? Will they see the power in compassion? Or will the lure of military strength, of empire building, call to them as it once called to him? He sees their potential, of course. His children are bright, capable, and full of promise. They embody the hope for a future shaped by the teachings of the Buddha. Yet as they grow older, Ashoka can't shake the worry that the lessons he has imparted to them, the ideals he holds so dear, may not be enough to guide them when the time comes to rule. The world, he knows, is unpredictable, and the burdens of leadership often shift as the empire changes. Will his children have the strength to uphold the values of peace in the face of challenges he cannot foresee? Ashoka's thoughts often turn inward as he watches his children from a distance. He has poured so much of himself into creating a kingdom founded on the Dharma, a kingdom where peace reigns and compassion guides the way. But he knows that his children will face their own struggles, their own decisions, and he cannot control how they will choose to govern when the crown is passed to them. The laughter of his children, the carefree joy of their childhood, is in sharp contrast to the weight of what they will one day inherit. He is not only shaping an empire for them, he is shaping the men and women they will become and the rulers they will be. The tension between his hopes for them and his fears for the future is something Ashoka struggles with daily. He wants his children to understand that true strength is not in military conquest, but in leading with kindness, understanding, and a commitment to the well-being of the people. He wants them to see the value in peace, in the silence after war, in the quiet strength that comes with ruling through compassion, rather than fear. But can these ideals survive the harsh realities of leadership? Can his children carry the weight of his legacy, of his transformation? and of the empire he has built? In the quiet moments, Ashoka reflects on his own journey. He, too, had been raised to lead with strength, to build an empire through conquest and dominance. It was only through his own experiences, the horrors of war, and the lessons of the Buddha, that he learned the true meaning of power. His hope is that his children will not need to experience the same struggles, that they will understand the importance of the Dharma from the start. Yet even as he imparts these teachings, Ashoka knows that the path ahead is theirs to choose. As Ashoka looks upon his children, he sees the future of the Maurya Empire unfolding before him. They are young, and their potential is vast. But Ashoka also knows that the real test will come when they are faced with the complexities of ruling. Will they continue his work of peace and compassion? Will they find their own way to lead? Or will they be tempted by the old ways of power and conquest? Ashoka's legacy, for all its strength, is also fragile. The empire he has worked so hard to build rests not just on the institutions he has created, but on the choices his children will make. In these moments of reflection, Ashoka finds a sense of quiet hope. His children, though they have yet to fully understand the complexities of leadership, have been raised in an empire that values the teachings of the Buddha. They are surrounded by peace, not war, and they have witnessed the transformation of their father from a conqueror to a ruler of wisdom and compassion. Whether they will continue this path is uncertain, but Ashoka trusts that the seeds he has planted will grow in their hearts. The future of the empire is theirs to shape, and as Ashoka watches them learn, grow, and laugh in the halls of the palace, he knows that he has done all he can to guide them. The rest, as it always has been, will be up to them. As the years go by, the once vibrant pulse of the royal court begins to feel distant to Ashoka. The palace, which once echoed with the sound of bustling courtiers, diplomats, and military strategists, now feels quieter, more still. The demands of his rule, though still pressing, have begun to blend with the stillness he finds in his heart. While his reign is defined by peace and compassion, Ashoka has become more deeply immersed in his spiritual journey, and with that, a sense of isolation begins to take hold. The soft rustling of robes and the distant footsteps of his courtiers in the halls serve as constant reminders of his royal duties, which, despite his wishes, continue to pull him back into the world of governance. Ashoka, once so attuned to the political maneuvering that defined his earlier years, now feels a growing detachment from the responsibilities that once consumed him. As he seeks moments of solitude, time alone becomes both a refuge and a reminder of the tension between his duties as emperor and his desire to go deeper into his spiritual life. The palace, still grand and full of life, now feels like a place he visits only when he must. When the weight of his rule demands his presence, it is no longer a space of comfort, but one that reminds him of the growing distance between the man he is becoming and the ruler he must remain. The walls that once felt like protection now feel like a cage, holding him in a world of politics and duty that seem ever more disconnected from the peace he seeks. There is a quiet loneliness that pervades the stillness of the palace halls, a quietness that has become a reflection of Ashoka's own inner state. He has turned inward, seeking solace in meditation and prayer, but the outside world has not ceased its demands. At times, he watches the courtiers moving through the palace, their lives full of the noise and bustle that once filled his own days. The courtiers, with their discussions of alliances and strategies, seem like visitors from another time, another world, a world Ashoka no longer feels connected to in the same way. He is the same man, the same ruler, but the man inside feels more distant from his role, as though the weight of his crown has become something he carries reluctantly. His thoughts are no longer solely consumed by matters of state, but by a deeper yearning to understand the true nature of his life, his empire, and his purpose. The contrast between the palace's quiet corridors and Ashoka's own sense of internal turmoil is stark. His reign, built on the foundation of peace, has given him a sense of purpose, yet as the years pass, he feels more and more disconnected from the world outside his mind. The teachings of the Buddha, once a source of clarity, now feel like they call to him from a distance, as though the deeper truths he seeks are just out of reach. Ashoka knows that the peace he has found within himself is a gift, but he also understands that it is not enough. He wants to understand more, to find the deeper meaning behind the serenity he feels. This journey into the depths of his soul is not one that can be shared with others. While his courtiers, ministers, and family fulfill their roles in the world, Ashoka finds himself alone with his thoughts, searching for answers that elude him. His kingdom flourishes under his rule, but the man at the center of it all is grappling with the question of his own existence. The questions he asks are not political or strategic, but existential. Questions about his own purpose, his role in the larger scheme of the world, and what true peace really means. In these moments of solitude, Ashoka feels a deepening isolation. The emperor who once stood at the head of a vast, bustling court now finds himself withdrawing from the very people who once filled his life with noise and demands. His ministers, once his closest advisors, seem like distant figures who move through his life with efficiency, but without the deep connection he once shared with them. The laughter of his children, once a joy, now seems distant, as though the weight of his thoughts has placed an invisible barrier between them. The palace itself, full of life and movement, has become a place he only inhabits physically, not emotionally. This isolation is not a rejection of the people around him, but rather a consequence of Ashoka's deepening spiritual journey. As his inner world expands, the world outside begins to feel smaller, less urgent. Yet this detachment leaves him with a sense of longing, a yearning for something more, something deeper. The peace he has found within himself is still a source of strength, but he cannot shake the feeling that it is not enough. Ashoka is torn between his duty as emperor and his desire to seek something beyond the tangible world of politics and statecraft. The transition ahead is not one of retreat, but of deeper reflection. Ashoka's spiritual journey is far from over, and the path he has chosen will require him to confront the very heart of his isolation, to understand what it means to live in the world as both a ruler and a seeker of truth. This inner struggle will shape the next phase of his reign, as he begins to explore how his spiritual journey can intersect with the needs of his kingdom. As Ashoka's reign matures, the empire he worked so hard to shape begins to undergo subtle yet profound changes. The ideals of peace and compassion that once seemed to flow seamlessly through the fabric of his kingdom now encounter the inevitable currents of time. New leaders emerge, some within his court, others from the farthest corners of the empire, with different visions of what the future should look like. Their presence marks a shifting tide, and Ashoka, who once ruled with the steady hand of certainty, finds himself facing challenges that he never anticipated. The familiar sounds of the bustling marketplace, once a steady rhythm of prosperity, now seem to carry a note of unease. The clinking of coins, a symbol of the empire's economic vitality, seems less assured as traders and merchants murmur anxiously about the changing climate. The empire, though still vast and united by Ashoka's influence, now feels the strain of its own complexity. The harmony that Ashoka sought to cultivate is beginning to show signs of tension, as the diverse peoples of the empire navigate a shifting landscape. The markets, once full of vibrant energy and confidence, now hum with a quieter uncertainty. The goods exchanged here, crops, silks, spices, and crafts, still flow in abundance, but the confidence that once accompanied these transactions is being overshadowed by unease. The weight of Ashoka's reforms, though still appreciated by many, is now seen by some as a burden. The redistribution of wealth, the encouragement of spiritual practice, and the emphasis on social welfare have caused ripples among the elite, many of whom are used to a more direct form of rule. There is growing discontent in the court and in the higher echelons of society, where old loyalties to military might and territorial expansion still hold sway. Ashoka, ever the observer, feels these changes as deeply as he feels the silence of the palace. The challenges are not ones he can easily solve with edicts or decrees. The empire, once unified under the banner of peace, now faces fractures that are not so easily mended. There are those who question his vision of a peaceful, tolerant empire, believing instead that a return to the old ways of strength and conquest may be the answer to the pressures mounting within and outside the empire. In the quiet moments of his reign, Ashoka's thoughts turn inward, and he grapples with a difficult truth. His legacy, the very empire he has carefully shaped, is now at a crossroads. The world he built, founded on the principles of Buddhism, peace, and compassion, has faced the test of time. And as with any great structure, the foundation is being tested by forces outside of his control. The palace, once a place of steady administration and governance, now feels like a battleground of ideas. The ministers and advisors who once shared his vision of peace now find themselves divided. Some see the growing unrest as a signal that the ideals Ashoka embraced no longer hold the same sway they once did. Others are beginning to argue for more direct forms of governance, hoping to restore order through the more traditional methods of military and political power. As Ashoka walks through the halls of his palace, the sounds of his ministers' voices rise in heated debates. The once peaceful atmosphere of his court now seems tinged with discord. Some ministers, loyal to Ashoka's vision, urge him to remain steadfast in his commitment to peace, but others, sensing the shifting tide, suggest that the time for compromise may be over. The soft murmur of their words contrasts sharply with the roar of uncertainty that fills Ashoka's mind. He, too, is unsure how to navigate these turbulent waters. Though Ashoka's spiritual commitment remains unwavering, he cannot escape the practical challenges of ruling an empire that is beginning to show signs of strain. His empire, once a beacon of peace and spiritual unity, is now at risk of fragmentation. The question of how to maintain his vision while addressing the growing dissent weighs heavily on his shoulders. His relationship with his children, once a source of quiet hope, is now also tinged with uncertainty. The growing challenges within the empire make Ashoka reflect on what kind of ruler his children will need to be. Will they be able to carry the weight of his vision? Or will they, too, be drawn into the tides of change that threaten to pull the empire in a new direction? Ashoka watches as his children grow, knowing that they will inherit not just the empire, but the questions that come with it. This period of transition tests Ashoka in ways he could not have foreseen. His role as a spiritual and political leader is being reshaped by the shifting currents of history. What he once believed to be the path forward, one built on peace, compassion, and the Dharma, now seems to be in conflict with the needs of the empire and the changing realities of the world outside his palace walls. The forces of tradition, ambition, and the complexities of empire are beginning to tug at the very fabric of his rule. As Ashoka reflects on these challenges, he realizes that the true test of his reign may not lie in the empire's physical borders, but in the hearts and minds of its people. The spiritual legacy he has worked to create is now facing a trial of endurance, and it is this trial that will shape the future of his kingdom. The empire, with its many contradictions and complexities, is at a turning point. Ashoka knows that the choices he makes now, the path he chooses to follow, will determine not just the future of his reign, but the legacy he leaves behind. The once sure foundation of his rule is now shaking, and the journey ahead promises to be one of both personal and political struggle. Yet, as always, Ashoka faces these challenges with resolve. The empire may be in transition, but so too is he, and the road that lies ahead will test not just his leadership, but the very ideals that have defined his reign. As the years pass, Ashoka finds himself in a place of quiet reflection. The bustle of the palace, once filled with the sounds of politics and decision-making, now seems distant to him. The days are slower, marked more by the steady rhythm of his own breath than by the rush of court affairs. His chambers, which once served as a hub of activity, have become a sanctuary for his thoughts, a place where the weight of his reign and the choices he has made over the decades come into clearer focus. The once strong hands that held the reins of power now tremble slightly, and the king, who once commanded the empire with fierce determination, finds himself questioning not just the future of his kingdom, but his place within it. The quiet of his chambers, filled with the sound of his breath, slower now with age, seems to echo through the vastness of the palace. Ashoka, once a ruler whose decisions shaped the course of nations, now spends his days looking inward. The empire he built with so much ambition, the kingdom he sought to transform into a beacon of peace and compassion, is now, in its latter years, filled with uncertainties. His children, though well educated in the ways of governance, have not yet proven how they will carry the mantle of leadership, and the ministers and advisers who once stood by his side now seem less certain of their own paths. His thoughts often drift to the early days of his reign, when the empire was still defined by conquest, when his every move seemed driven by the need for more land, more power, more glory. How different those days now seem, and how deeply Ashoka has changed. The man who once sought dominance and expansion through violence is now a leader who has tried, with varying success, to rule through peace, to instill the teachings of Buddhism into the fabric of his empire. He has built temples, inscribed edicts, and made the teachings of the Buddha central to his rule. Yet, as the years unfold, Ashoka feels the weight of his past, of the conquests and the bloodshed, pressing upon him. The quiet of his final years is a sharp contrast to the noise of his youth, when every battle and victory brought a new thrill, a new sense of purpose. Now, the battles are internal. The soft rustle of his robes as he moves through his chambers is the only sound that fills the silence, and the hours pass in quiet contemplation. Ashoka has seen the empire grow and flourish, but he has also seen it change in ways he could never have anticipated. The peaceful empire he once envisioned, one based on non-violence and compassion, faces new challenges. His reforms, once so radical, are now being questioned, and the new leaders rising to power in the empire do not always share his vision for the future. In these quiet moments, Ashoka finds himself questioning his legacy. The empire, so vast and once so full of promise, now seems fragile, the threads of unity beginning to unravel. He wonders whether the peace he has worked so hard to create can truly endure. He looks at his children, his heirs to the throne, and wonders if they will carry his vision forward. Will they hold fast to the principles of compassion and understanding that have defined his reign, or will they be tempted by the old ways of conquest and power? His thoughts are heavy with the knowledge that the future of the empire lies in their hands, and he is unsure if they are truly ready for the responsibility. Yet despite his concerns, there is a quiet peace that Ashoka has found in these later years. The harshness of his earlier years, the guilt of Kalinga, the internal battles he fought to reconcile his past with his present, all seem to have found some measure of resolution in the quiet reflection of age. He may not have been perfect, but Ashoka understands now that true leadership is not about achieving an ideal, but about striving toward it, imperfectly, with the best of intentions. The soft murmur of prayer fills his thoughts as Ashoka sits in solitude, contemplating his reign and his spiritual journey. The sound of the prayer beads slipping through his fingers is a familiar rhythm, a connection to the peace he has found through Buddhism. He has come to understand that peace is not a destination but a practice, a daily, constant effort to align one's actions with the highest principles. In his final years, Ashoka is more at peace with himself than ever before, though he knows that the empire's future will not be shaped by him alone. As the sun sets over the empire he built, Ashoka reflects on the legacy he will leave behind. The vast empire, with its many peoples, cultures, and beliefs, will carry his name through history, but it is the teachings of the Buddha that will truly define his legacy. He has tried to shape his reign according to the principles of the Dharma, to lead with compassion, and to create a world where peace is the guiding force. Whether the empire will continue to thrive on these ideals, or whether the winds of change will lead it down a different path, Ashoka cannot know for sure. In his final years, Ashoka understands that his role as a ruler is coming to an end. The weight of his reign is passing to the next generation, and he must now let go of the empire he once shaped with such certainty. His heart is full of gratitude for the peace he has helped create, and for the lessons he has learned on his journey from conqueror to compassionate ruler. The future is uncertain, but Ashoka's faith in the teachings of Buddhism remains unshaken. It is the Dharma, he knows, that will endure long after his reign has ended, and it is the Dharma that will continue to guide his empire into the future. As Ashoka sits in the quiet of his chambers, surrounded by the stillness of the night, he knows that his journey is nearing its end, but he is at peace, for the work he has done, the legacy he has built, and the life he has led are all aligned with the highest of ideals. His reign may be over, but the ripples of his actions will continue to spread for generations to come. Ashoka sits quietly in the palace, his thoughts heavy with the realization that the empire he has built, an empire once marked by power, peace, and spiritual growth, has reached its peak. The sounds of royal celebrations, which once rang out with joy and triumph, now seem to echo less frequently, their vibrancy fading with time. The once bustling marketplace, full of energy and commerce, now carries a quieter hum. Though prosperity continues, the rhythms of the empire are changing. The energy that once defined the Maurya Empire, both in the royal courts and in the lives of its people, feels as though it is slowing, its pulse no longer as strong as it once was. For Ashoka, the realization that the empire has entered the twilight of its golden age comes with a deep sense of both pride and melancholy. He has ruled with the ideals of Buddhism at the core of his leadership: non-violence, compassion, and spiritual wisdom. His reign has been one of peace and transformation. Yet the empire, as with all things, cannot remain in its prime forever. Time is an ever-moving force, and Ashoka feels its weight in his bones, in the slow quiet of the palace, and in the subtle shifts in the world around him. The golden age of the Maurya Empire, which he had worked so hard to create, now feels like a moment suspended in history, a moment that cannot be held onto forever. The festive sounds of royal celebrations, once filled with lively music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses, have become more rare. The grand feasts that once marked the victories of the empire, the triumphs of war and power, now feel disconnected from the present. The joy that was once so abundant in these halls has become quieter, more reserved. Ashoka reflects on how far the empire has come, from its origins in conquest to the peace it now knows. He marvels at how the vision he once had, to create an empire founded not on violence but on compassion, has taken shape. Yet even as he celebrates the peace and prosperity of his reign, he cannot deny the quiet pull of decline. The marketplace, once alive with the sounds of bargaining, the shuffling of goods, and the chatter of people exchanging ideas, now seems more muted. The rhythmic activity of trade is no longer as full of energy as it once was. Merchants, once eager to sell their goods, now move with a certain caution, as if uncertain of the future. Though the empire is still rich and its people still thrive, the bustling heart of commerce feels less vibrant than it did in years past. Ashoka knows that the empire's strength lies in the vitality of its people, and when that vitality begins to fade, so too does the strength of the empire. As the palace quiets around him, Ashoka's thoughts turn to the future. He has built an empire of peace, but what will become of it once he is gone? His children, though raised in an environment of spiritual growth and compassion, are still young, and he worries whether they will be able to uphold the values he has instilled in them. His reign, shaped by his devotion to the Dharma, has set a course for the empire, but the future is uncertain. The ministers, once loyal to his vision of peace, now seem divided, uncertain of how to continue without the force of Ashoka's leadership to guide them. The weight of this uncertainty presses on Ashoka's heart as he contemplates the future of the Maurya Empire, his legacy, and the empire's ability to survive beyond his reign. His children, who have been raised to inherit the throne, will face challenges that Ashoka could never have foreseen. The values he has instilled in them, compassion, non-violence, and justice, will be tested by the harsh realities of ruling an empire that is already beginning to show signs of wear. The people of the empire, though still prosperous, will need guidance, and Ashoka worries whether his children will be able to continue leading them with the same wisdom and compassion that defined his reign. Will they be able to maintain the peace he has created, or will the empire return to its former ways of power and conquest? As Ashoka reflects on these thoughts, he knows that he cannot control the future. His reign, though marked by success, will inevitably give way to a new generation of rulers, each with their own vision for the empire. The sounds of royal celebrations and the bustling of the marketplace may grow quieter, but Ashoka understands that the legacy of his rule will endure. The empire he has built, founded on peace and spiritual growth, will remain a testament to the power of compassion and wisdom. Yet even as Ashoka faces the quiet decline of the golden age he helped create, he knows that the challenges of the future will not define his legacy. The ideals he fought for, the ideals of peace, kindness, and justice, will continue to resonate long after his reign has ended. His commitment to the Dharma, his devotion to the well-being of his people, will endure in the hearts of those who continue to live by these principles. The transition into the next phase of the empire's history will be difficult, but Ashoka remains hopeful. The empire may face new challenges and threats, but it is not defined by its military strength or territorial expansion. Instead, it is defined by the enduring power of its values, by the legacy of peace Ashoka has cultivated. And though the golden age of the Maurya Empire may be coming to an end, the light of its ideals will continue to shine, guiding the empire through whatever the future may bring. As Ashoka sits in the quiet of the palace, he knows that his time is drawing to a close. But he also knows that the work he has done, the empire he has built, and the values he has instilled will continue to echo through the generations. His reign, though marked by its end, will live on in the hearts and minds of those who carry forward the principles of peace, compassion, and justice. The empire, like all things, will change, but its foundation, built on the teachings of the Buddha, will endure. As the seasons pass, Ashoka feels the unmistakable weight of age settling in. The once vibrant palace, filled with the sounds of activity and purpose, now seems quieter. The bustling of courtiers, the calls of royal advisors, the laughter of his children, these sounds now feel distant, as though they belong to a time that has slowly slipped away. Ashoka, whose reign was marked by so much vitality, now finds himself in the quiet stillness of his later years, his body no longer as strong as it once was. His health has begun to decline, and with it, the once constant rhythm of his life has slowed. His breathing, once steady and commanding, is now slow and labored, each breath a reminder that time like everything else, is fleeting. The world around him continues, but Ashoka feels removed from it. The courtiers who once crowded his chambers now move with hushed steps, their voices soft and careful, as though not wishing to disturb the peace of his final days. The sounds of royal duties, the lively discussions about the empire's future, have all grown faint. It is as if the very air of the palace is thick with reflection, as though even the walls of his home are bracing for the inevitable. The empire that once flourished under his guidance, vibrant with the ideals of peace and compassion, now seems to be holding its breath, awaiting what will come next. Ashoka, in his solitude, often reflects on his life. The man who once conquered with the sword, who expanded his empire through force, is now a man of quiet contemplation. He feels the weight of his past and the choices he made, the battles he fought, the victories he claimed, the kingdom he built. All of it has brought him here, to this quiet end. The once proud emperor, whose name was spoken in awe across the lands, now finds himself in the final moments of his reign, surrounded not by armies or wealth, but by the simple sounds of life that continue without him. In his moments of clarity, Ashoka is at peace. He has seen his empire transform from one defined by conquest and power to one shaped by peace, tolerance, and spiritual growth. He has seen the Buddha's teachings take root in the hearts of his people, and he has tried to rule not with force, but with wisdom and compassion. His reign, though not without its challenges, has been marked by a profound shift toward justice and harmony. As he lies in his chambers, his thoughts often turn to the legacy he will leave behind, not in the buildings he has constructed or the land he has governed, but in the hearts of the people who will continue to live by the principles he has tried to instill. But even as Ashoka finds peace within himself, the world outside his chambers cannot stop moving. His ministers, aware of his declining health, quietly begin to prepare for the future. The future of the Maurya Empire, his empire, will soon be in the hands of others, his children, his ministers, and the generations to come. Ashoka's once strong hands, which guided the fate of an empire, now rest still. The sounds of the palace continue, but they feel distant, as though Ashoka is slipping further and further away from the world he built. As the days pass and his health worsens, Ashoka's thoughts become more introspective. He has lived a life of transformation, moving from a conqueror to a king of peace. But in these final moments, his mind drifts, not to his own achievements, but to the people who have shaped his journey. He thinks of the Buddha, whose teachings transformed his heart and his kingdom. He thinks of the ministers, the soldiers, and the common folk whose lives have been touched by his rule. And he thinks of his family, the children he hopes will carry on his legacy, the queen who has shared both the joys and burdens of his reign. Though his body weakens, his heart remains full, filled with gratitude for the path he has walked and the empire he leaves behind. Ashoka knows that the time for action is over. He has done all he can, and now all that remains is to face the inevitable with the same calm and peace that has guided his reign. His thoughts drift to the future of his empire, to the challenges that will come after his passing. He has tried to lay a foundation for a kingdom of peace, but he knows that the empire is not defined by one man alone. His legacy, though important, is not the end of the story. It is a chapter in a much larger narrative, one that will continue long after he is gone. In the stillness of the night, Ashoka's thoughts begin to slow, and his breathing becomes even more labored. The quiet that surrounds him deepens as he prepares to step into the unknown. He is at peace, knowing that he has tried to live his life according to the highest ideals, and that his work, though incomplete, has left the empire better than it was when he first took the throne. He has seen the suffering of war, the weight of conquest, and the power of compassion. He knows that the legacy he leaves behind will not be defined by the empire's size or wealth, but by the peace he helped create and the hearts he touched. As Ashoka's breath slows and the world around him fades into a gentle quiet, he is ready. He has walked a long, difficult path, but he has found the peace he sought. The empire will carry on, shaped by the lessons of the past, guided by the teachings of the Buddha. Ashoka's passing is not the end of his story, but the beginning of a new chapter, one that will be defined by the legacy of compassion, justice, and peace that he has worked so hard to create. In the days to come, the empire will face new challenges, but Ashoka's spirit, his ideals, and his vision will remain. And as his final moments draw near, the peace he has cultivated within himself and his kingdom will be the legacy he leaves behind. Ashoka's passing marks the end of an era. The quiet stillness that followed his final breath settles over the empire, and the once vibrant palace, filled with the sounds of his rule, now feels like an echo of the past. His reign, shaped by the ideals of peace, compassion, and Buddhism, has come to an end, leaving behind a kingdom forever changed by his influence. Yet even in death, Ashoka's legacy continues to resonate, not just in the empire he built, but in the hearts of the people who lived under his rule. Though Ashoka's empire begins to splinter in the wake of his death, the ideals he held so dearly remain. The edicts he inscribed, those monumental declarations of peace and moral law, continue to stand as silent witnesses to his reign. His words, carved into stone, are passed down through the generations, each one a reminder of the man who sought to lead with compassion. The echoes of his teachings, of nonviolence, justice, and the interconnection of all living beings, continue to reverberate throughout the empire. Though his empire now faces new challenges, his influence, particularly through the spread of Buddhism, remains an enduring force. The monks who once chanted in Ashoka's presence now chant in his absence, their voices carrying the peaceful teachings of the Buddha across the land. The soft murmur of their prayers fills the air, reverberating through the meditation halls and temples Ashoka helped build. These spaces, where the teachings of the Buddha are practiced and lived, continue to be sanctuaries of peace. The calming rhythm of their chants, the quiet presence of the monks in their robes, and the gentle flow of meditation serve as a testament to Ashoka's lasting impact on the spiritual life of the empire. In these halls, Ashoka's legacy lives on in a way that is not dependent on the size or strength of his empire, but on the deeper, more enduring impact of his vision. The peace he sought to establish within the empire is now found in the hearts of those who continue to follow the path of the Buddha. The practice of meditation, which Ashoka embraced so fully in his later years, continues to guide the people of the empire, offering solace and clarity in the midst of uncertainty. His commitment to compassion and non-violence, the very foundation of his rule, now takes root in the everyday lives of the people, shaping the way they interact with each other and the world around them. Yet despite this spiritual continuity, the empire that Ashoka leaves behind begins to change. The unity he cultivated during his reign starts to fray as new leaders rise to power, each with their own vision for the future. The ministers, who once worked under his guidance, now find themselves at a crossroads. Without Ashoka's steady hand to guide them, they are left to navigate the complex and often contradictory demands of governing an empire. Some seek to uphold his teachings, while others look to the old ways of power and military might. The empire begins to splinter, with different factions vying for control, and the peace that Ashoka worked so hard to cultivate is now threatened by the same forces of ambition and division that once shaped his early reign. The loss of Ashoka's leadership creates a void, and the empire struggles to find its way without him. The divisions between the various regions of the empire, which had once been held together by his firm yet compassionate rule, now begin to widen. Local rulers, once loyal to Ashoka, begin to assert their independence, and the unity of the Maurya Empire begins to unravel. The vision of a peaceful and just empire, guided by the Dharma, seems less certain without Ashoka at the helm. Despite these challenges, Ashoka's influence does not fade. The The spiritual foundation he established, built on the teachings of the Buddha, remains a powerful force. The spread of Buddhism, which Ashoka had worked so diligently to promote, continues to grow, both within the empire and beyond its borders. The monks, who were once emissaries of Ashoka's peace, now become the bearers of his legacy. They travel far and wide, spreading the teachings of the Buddha to distant lands. The edicts Ashoka carved into stone, inscribed with his vision of a just and compassionate world, continue to inspire those who encounter them. In the quiet spaces where Ashoka's influence was felt most deeply, the meditation halls, the temples, the hearts of his people, his legacy lives on. The teachings of nonviolence, compassion, and justice continue to guide the spiritual life of the empire, even as the political landscape shifts. The empire may be splintering, but the core of Ashoka's vision, rooted in the Dharma, remains intact. It is in these teachings that his true legacy lies, a legacy that transcends borders and time, living on in the hearts of those who seek to lead with kindness and understanding. As the empire faces its challenges in the wake of Ashoka's passing, his legacy is carried forward by those who hold dear the values he instilled. Though the kingdom may splinter and the political landscape shift, the ideals that Ashoka championed, the peace, the compassion, and the wisdom of the Buddha, continue to shape the world. In the years to come, the legacy of Ashoka's reign will not be defined by the empire he built, but by the enduring power of the Dharma that continues to guide the hearts of people across the land. Ashoka's edicts, once carved into stone with the meticulous care of a ruler determined to leave behind a lasting legacy, now echo through the corridors of history. These inscriptions, scattered across the vast expanse of his empire, have endured far beyond the time of their creation. The sound of pen on paper, the act of recording Ashoka's vision, has long since faded, but the resonance of his words continues to reverberate, carried from one generation to the next. His edicts, more than mere declarations of law, are a testament to his unwavering commitment to peace, tolerance, and justice. They stand as a permanent reminder of the man who sought to rule not through the sword, but through wisdom and compassion. In the years following Ashoka's death, the edicts he left behind become crucial guides for those who seek to understand the principles that defined his reign. These stone pillars, inscribed with Ashoka's vision, serve as silent witnesses to his empire's transformation, from one rooted in conquest to one guided by the teachings of the Buddha. The edicts outline his moral code, promoting ethical behavior, non-violence, and respect for all living beings. They are not just records of laws, but expressions of Ashoka's spiritual journey, a reflection of his deep belief that true power lies in the ability to rule with kindness and understanding. As the centuries pass, these edicts continue to serve as a source of guidance and inspiration. They are revered not only in India, but in distant lands, where the teachings of Buddhism have taken root. The edicts are read, studied, and interpreted by scholars, monks, and spiritual leaders, who see in them a reflection of Ashoka's vision for a peaceful world, a world where rulers lead not with fear, but with a heart full of compassion. The lessons contained in his words, written with such care and thoughtfulness, are not confined to the past. They are timeless principles that continue to shape the world around them. Ashoka's influence, through his edicts, transcends the physical boundaries of his empire. As Buddhism spreads across Asia, reaching as far as Sri Lanka, Southeast Asia, and even Central Asia, the principles enshrined in Ashoka's edicts are carried with it. His vision of a kingdom that values nonviolence, kindness, and spiritual growth becomes a beacon for those who seek peace in a world often marred by conflict. His teachings are passed down through generations, and the echoes of his reign continue to inspire rulers and citizens alike. The edicts, in their simplicity and clarity, continue to serve as a moral compass for societies that look to Ashoka's reign as an example of what true leadership can be. His commitment to social welfare, the care of the sick and the elderly, and the fair treatment of all citizens, regardless of their status, becomes a model for future generations. The empire Ashoka once ruled may have splintered, but his moral vision remains intact, carried in the words he inscribed on stone. In the quiet of monasteries and the bustle of courts, Ashoka's edicts are read aloud, debated, and revered. They are not just relics of an ancient past, they are living documents, shaping the present and guiding the future. The sound of his edicts being read is like the sound of a voice from history, speaking directly to those who seek a better way of living, a way that is rooted in the peace Ashoka fought so hard to establish. The edicts remind the people that peace is not a passive state, but an active effort, one that requires constant care and attention. As the centuries continue to pass, Ashoka's edicts serve as a bridge between the past and the present. They provide a connection to a time when a ruler believed that true greatness lies in the ability to live with compassion and to govern with wisdom. The edicts are not merely a historical curiosity. They are a call to action, a reminder that the work Ashoka began is not finished. His legacy, enshrined in these words, lives on, influencing generations of leaders who seek to govern with justice, kindness, and a commitment to the well-being of their people. In the modern world, the relevance of Ashoka's edicts remains undeniable. As the challenges of leadership continue to evolve, the lessons of Ashoka's reign provide a timeless framework for those in power. The edicts remind us that leadership is not about dominance, but about service to others. They remind us that true peace is not achieved through force, but through understanding and compassion. And they remind us that even in the face of adversity, we can find a path forward that is rooted in love and respect for all beings. The sound of Ashoka's edicts continues to echo through history. Though the empire he once ruled may no longer exist, the teachings he left behind live on, shaping the spiritual and moral landscape of the world. In the quiet moments, when the world seems chaotic and uncertain, we can turn to the words of Ashoka and find solace in the wisdom they offer. His legacy of peace endures, a reminder that the most lasting empires are not those built on the strength of arms, but on the strength of compassion. As we turn the page to the next chapter, we see how Ashoka's teachings, through his edicts and influence on Buddhism, continue to spread and evolve. His words, written long ago, still carry the power to transform lives and guide the hearts of those who seek a better world. His legacy of peace is far from over. It is a living force, one that will continue to inspire and shape the future. As the years pass and Ashoka's influence deepens, his legacy begins to reach far beyond the borders of India. The ripples of his reign, shaped by the principles of Buddhism and a commitment to peace, stretch across the world. The empire he once ruled may no longer stand as it did in his time, but the teachings he championed are carried on by those who learned from him. Ashoka's message, rooted in nonviolence, compassion, and justice, takes flight, crossing oceans, mountains, and deserts to reach distant lands. The whispers of Ashoka's teachings begin to travel, carried by monks, traders, and emissaries who spread the wisdom of the Buddha far beyond India's borders. His edicts, inscribed in stone and etched with the values of peace, inspire countless individuals in Central Asia, Southeast Asia, and beyond. These regions, once unfamiliar with the teachings of Buddhism, now begin to embrace the principles that Ashoka had worked so hard to establish. His message is carried not just by words, but by the quiet power of the Dharma, which touches the hearts of those who hear it. In Southeast Asia, the influence of Ashoka is felt as the teachings of Buddhism find their way into the kingdoms of the region. Traders and monks who journey from India bring with them the stories of Ashoka's reign, and the peace he fostered becomes a guiding light for rulers and citizens alike. Ashoka's commitment to social welfare, his belief in the importance of nonviolence, and his emphasis on the moral law that governs all beings resonate deeply with the cultures they encounter. The empire he built may have been an ancient power, but its lessons are timeless, finding fertile ground in new lands, where they are woven into the fabric of new societies. In Central Asia, Ashoka's influence continues to grow, with his teachings spreading to the regions along the Silk Road. The merchants and travelers who pass through these lands bring with them the stories of a great king who renounced violence and ruled with wisdom. The edicts Ashoka inscribed on stone pillars are read by those who come into contact with them, and the message of peace, tolerance, and understanding begins to take root. The moral framework that Ashoka established does not remain confined to India. It spreads outward, carried by the movement of people and ideas along one of the most important trade routes of the ancient world. Ashoka's teachings cross seas and reach the shores of Sri Lanka, where they find a welcoming home. It is here that the influence of Ashoka's reign, embodied in the spread of Buddhism, takes on new significance. His emissaries, sent with the specific purpose of spreading the Dharma, bring the teachings of the Buddha and Ashoka's vision of a peaceful, just society to the island nation. In Sri Lanka, the Dharma is embraced by kings and commoners alike, becoming a central part of their spiritual and political life. The peace Ashoka sought to create through his edicts now manifests in the practice of Buddhism, in a land far from the capital of Pataliputra. As Ashoka's teachings spread, they take on new forms, adapting to the cultural and spiritual landscapes they encounter. The fundamental principles of Buddhism, non-violence, compassion, and the pursuit of wisdom remain the same, but the way they are understood and practiced may vary from region to region. What begins as a personal transformation for Ashoka becomes a collective movement that transcends geographical and cultural boundaries. In each new place, the seeds he planted grow into something unique, but always rooted in the same values. The teachings of Ashoka, carried by monks and travelers, become a part of the broader fabric of Buddhist thought and practice. His commitment to peace and justice shapes the way Buddhism is understood in different parts of the world. The kingdom he once ruled, now fading into the distant past, becomes a symbol of the transformative power of compassion and non-violence. In places far removed from India, the ideals that Ashoka championed continue to inspire leaders, thinkers, and ordinary people who look to his reign as a model for how to build a better, more peaceful world. As Ashoka's teachings spread across Asia, the empire he once ruled becomes a distant memory, but the values he promoted continue to shape the world. The edicts he inscribed in stone, though now weathered by time, are still read and revered by those who seek guidance. His story, told in temples and monasteries across the world, becomes part of the collective memory of humanity, a reminder that true leadership lies not in power or conquest, but in the ability to rule with compassion and wisdom. In the quiet corners of distant lands, monks sit in meditation, their minds and hearts open to the teachings of Ashoka and the Buddha. The peaceful empire he once dreamed of, founded on the principles of nonviolence and justice, continues to live on in the hearts of those who carry his message forward. His legacy, far from being confined to the empire he built, becomes a global force for good, transcending time, geography, and political borders. As we reflect on the spread of Ashoka's teachings after his death, we see how his commitment to peace transcends all that he accomplished in his lifetime. The influence of his reign, rooted in the principles of the Dharma, continues to shape the world long after he is gone. His story, his message, and his vision for a compassionate world are not confined to the past. They are alive in the present, guiding generations toward a future built on wisdom, compassion, and the belief that peace is the true path to greatness. As Ashoka's influence spreads, so too does the understanding of what true peace means. His legacy of nonviolence, tolerance, and moral governance continues to inspire leaders and citizens alike, long after the empire he once ruled has faded into history. The impact of his reign, through the spread of his teachings, marks not just a chapter in history, but the beginning of a lasting legacy that continues to shape the course of human civilization. Centuries have passed since Ashoka's reign, yet his legacy continues to burn brightly in the hearts of those who follow his teachings. The world has changed in many ways. Empires have risen and fallen, and new challenges have emerged. But Ashoka's spirit, grounded in peace, compassion, and the pursuit of wisdom, endures. His transformation from a ruthless conqueror to a compassionate ruler remains one of history's most profound stories, and the flame of his spirit continues to inspire individuals and communities alike, lighting the way toward a more just and harmonious world. The teachings that Ashoka embraced and propagated are not confined to the past, nor are they bound by the borders of the Maurya Empire. His message has traveled across continents, taking root in cultures and societies far beyond his time. The quiet strength of his spirit is felt in every act of kindness, every effort to resolve conflict without violence, and in the decisions made by those who lead with empathy rather than force. From the corners of India to the far reaches of Southeast Asia, Central Asia, and beyond, Ashoka's ideals of peace and justice are alive in the daily lives of countless individuals. In the monasteries where the teachings of the Buddha are still practiced, Ashoka's influence is palpable. His reign, defined by his embrace of the Dharma, left an indelible mark on the spiritual landscape of the world. The quiet chants of monks in meditation halls, the soft rustle of prayer beads, and the mindful steps of those seeking enlightenment all reflect the ongoing impact of Ashoka's spiritual transformation. It is as though his spirit still walks among them, whispering the same messages of compassion, non-violence, and the importance of inner peace. Beyond the confines of religious practice, Ashoka's spirit continues to inspire leaders, thinkers, and activists who strive to bring about positive change. The world today, filled with its own struggles and divisions, still looks to Ashoka's example as a model for leadership grounded in peace. His rejection of violence and his commitment to justice serve as powerful reminders that true leadership does not come from domination, but from service to others. His legacy, now deeply embedded in the fabric of many cultures, remains a guiding force in efforts to create more peaceful and just societies. Ashoka's spirit is felt in the small, everyday acts of kindness that ripple through the world. Whether it's a simple gesture of helping a neighbor, standing up for the oppressed, or working to heal the divisions that separate us, Ashoka's influence is present. His teachings remind us that we all have the capacity to create change, to build a world where compassion guides our actions, and where understanding prevails over conflict. The eternal flame of Ashoka's spirit is not just a symbol of his reign, but a call to action for those who seek to leave a positive mark on the world. In every community where peace is nurtured, where people come together to build a better world, Ashoka's presence can be felt. His legacy is not only in the grand monuments that stand as testaments to his reign, but in the hearts of the countless individuals who have taken his message to heart. It is in the leaders who seek to serve their people, in the activists who fight for justice, and in the individuals who practice kindness and compassion in their daily lives. His teachings continue to shape the moral compass of humanity, guiding those who look to his example for inspiration. Even as the world changes, Ashoka's spirit remains a constant, a reminder of what is possible when one leads with the heart. His transformation, from a conqueror driven by ambition to a ruler devoted to the welfare of his people, demonstrates the profound power of self-reflection and personal growth. Ashoka's journey teaches us that no matter our past, no matter the mistakes we have made, we always have the ability to change and to lead with compassion. His story is one of redemption, and his spirit serves as a beacon of hope for all who seek to bring about peace in the world. The flame of Ashoka's spirit is eternal, and it burns brightly in the hearts of those who continue his work. Though he is no longer with us, his teachings live on, passed down through the generations, carried by those who believe in the power of peace and justice. The world may be different from the one Ashoka knew, but the essence of his message remains as relevant today as it was during his reign. As we reflect on Ashoka's journey, his rise, his transformation, and his legacy, we come to understand that his story is not just a chapter in history, but a living, breathing force that continues to shape the world. His commitment to peace, to the welfare of his people, and to the teachings of the Buddha offers a timeless model for how we can all strive to be better leaders, better people, and better citizens of the world. Ashoka's legacy is not something confined to the past. It is something that lives on in each of us as we carry his spirit forward into the future. As we conclude this journey, we remember that Ashoka's spirit, his pursuit of peace, his wisdom, and his compassion will continue to guide us. His legacy is not a fleeting moment in time, but a constant, ever-present light that will shine on, illuminating the path toward a more compassionate and just world. Ashoka may have passed from this world, but his teachings, his example, and his spirit remain as a guiding force, lighting the way for generations to come. As you lie in the quiet of the night, the stillness of Ashoka's world envelops you, and your journey through his life draws to a close. The weight of the empire, once filled with the clamor of conquests and political struggle, has faded into the background. Now, there is only the soft rhythm of the palace, the quiet beat of the empire that continues in peace, echoing through the chambers, like the steady breath of a long-dormant heart. This is a moment of reflection, a time to acknowledge the transformation that has taken place, not just in Ashoka's empire, but within yourself. The empire that Ashoka shaped, once marred by violence and ambition, is now defined by wisdom, compassion, and the quiet strength of his leadership. As the night stretches on, the peaceful transition of his rule becomes a part of you. The calm that fills the palace, the gentle hum of life continuing, and the enduring legacy of Ashoka's teachings offer a moment of serenity. The harshness of his earlier days has given way to a reign built on kindness, and as you rest, you feel the sense of peace he sought for so many years. Ashoka's transformation, from conqueror to compassionate ruler, is a journey that reverberates through the centuries, and as you reflect, you realize that the peace he worked so tirelessly to establish has not only shaped his empire, but also left a quiet imprint on your own thoughts. The ideals he lived by, nonviolence, justice, compassion, become a part of the fabric of your own being, like an echo that lingers long after the sounds of his reign have quieted. The sounds that once filled the palace, bustling courtiers, military drums, the clamor of royal duties, have now faded into the background, leaving only the gentle rhythm of the empire's heart, pulsing with the quiet breath of peace. The teachings of the Buddha, the Dharma that Ashoka embraced, now resonate in the stillness of the night. You can almost hear the soft chants of monks, their voices carrying the principles of Ashoka's reign across the centuries. In this moment, the line between Ashoka's world and yours begins to blur, as if the legacy of his peaceful rule continues to weave its way into the present, offering solace and wisdom. As you close your eyes, you are reminded of the journey you've taken through his life. The empire he built, so vast and diverse, was not just a political entity, but a kingdom grounded in the understanding that true strength comes from compassion, not from the sword. The quiet transition from Ashoka's life to your own is a peaceful one, as if his legacy of peace and spirituality continues to resonate long after his reign has ended. In the stillness, you find yourself connected not just to the past, but to the quiet, enduring force of his teachings. In these final reflections, you realize that Ashoka's story is not merely one of history, but one that continues to shape the way we understand leadership, compassion, and the path toward peace. His reign, marked by transformation and introspection, is a reminder that true greatness is not measured by the size of an empire, but by the ability to lead with a heart full of understanding. As Ashoka's journey comes to its end, it becomes clear that the work he began, the cultivation of peace and compassion, never truly ends. It is passed on from ruler to ruler, from generation to generation, from heart to heart. The palace is quiet now, and the world outside has faded into the gentle embrace of the night. As you lie still, the weight of the journey you've taken with Ashoka feels lighter, almost peaceful. The struggles, the triumphs, the moments of doubt, and the quiet acceptance of his own mortality all blend together into a narrative of hope, one that transcends time and space. Ashoka may no longer walk the earth, but the spirit of his reign, the wisdom of his decisions, the depth of his transformation, continues to live on, in the world and in you. You feel the final stirrings of the empire's heartbeat, now a distant, peaceful rhythm, and you understand that Ashoka's legacy is not just a story of an ancient king. It is a living, breathing force that continues to inspire, guide, and shape the world. And now, as the quiet fills the room, you begin to feel yourself drifting into rest, carrying with you the peaceful transition of Ashoka's reign, the lessons of his life, and the enduring power of his spirit. You've traveled through the vastness of an empire, watched a king's transformation, and witnessed the peaceful legacy he left behind. Now, as you close your eyes, that peace settles in, and you rest, knowing that Ashoka's story, his journey toward compassion, continues to echo in the world, shaping the path toward a future of understanding, kindness, and peace. And with that, you let go, drifting into the serenity that has now become your own.